United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, I welcome everybody to the meeting today. We have a very full agenda and probably an exciting one from the looks of it. So, this is for appeals of decisions from the Metropolitan Transportation Licensing Commission. Pursuant to the provisions of Section 2.68.030 of the Metropolitan Code of Laws, notice is hereby given that if you are not satisfied with the decision made by the Metropolitan Transportation Licensing Commission, you may appeal the decision by petitioning for a writ of certiorari with the Davidson County Chancery or Circuit Court. Your appeal must be filed within 60 days of the date of the entry of the Metropolitan Transportation Licensing Commission's decision. We advise you to seek your own independent legal advice to ensure that your appeal is filed in a timely manner and that all procedural requirements have been met. All right, we now will go to the public comment period, and I have a couple folks, at least 5 people who have asked to speak today. Please be reminded that we like you to, as much as possible, limit your comments to about 2 minutes, please. And the first name up here is Ash, and is it Pereira? And feel welcome to correct me if I'm mispronouncing folks' last name, please. But do please state your full name and what issue on the agenda today you'd like to speak to.
Okay. Am I on now? Am I good? Green. It is green. 0. Okay. I'm Ash Pereira. I manage and run Nashville Pedicab, which is one of the few companies here for pedicabs. I asked to speak today in regards to the disciplinary hearing on behalf of Jake Stewart, but I also wanted to bring a little context to that and also speak on Jake's character. We've had a huge safety issue in Nashville this past year with which I believe the TLC is aware and definitely put forth great effort in trying to resolve this issue with a illegal pedicabber and operator attempting to also start a company here from Chicago, his name being Lewis Lawson. Lewis Lawson has provided a huge safety concern for all of my riders, in which we've had at least 3 or 4 situations or with bear mace being used on our riders. Complaints against women patrons that have called and sent texts to our company concerned about the conduct and behavior that Lewis has had on his pedicab, has stolen materials and phones from Jake specifically, which has cost him thousands of dollars. My riders have had to take off many days of work to tend to their skinned wounds from bear mace, which is totally different from regular mace if you do not know. And it's been an ongoing issue, and we have placed our trust in MMPD and the TLC to resolve this issue, and we are patiently waiting for this to be resolved. But here, I wanted to provide some context in regards to the situation because of Jake's response to this and what he's dealing with that. Jake has always been a wonderful pedicabber. I've been operating in this city for 10 years as a pedicabber, and since 2019 as a manager. I know my minutes are up, but I just want to say Jake has always been a wonderful human being and pedicabber in our company, and I've never had an issue with him ever up until this point. He's a wonderful man. He was my mechanic. He's a friend, and he's a great asset to this community. And I just wanted to provide context for you all before that disciplinary hearing. If so, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Weaver, you're next on the list.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and you did pronounce my name correctly. I'm assuming, Mr. Chairman, there are 2 items on a public hearing today, and I'll have the opportunity to address those, so I won't do those now. What I did want to address just briefly was a letter that our client TowPro presented to to the commission earlier this week, and just give a teensy bit of context for it. The letter basically says that to the extent the commission determines today that there are emergency zones that are available, then TOPRO stands ready to accept those, if that would be the commission's wish, and take those over as early as this afternoon. We don't know how the commission is going to come out with regard to whether or not there are any current zone holders who are ineligible, but if there are zones that are open, then TOPRO wanted to put an implementation plan in front of the commission so that you know that you could have coverage on those zones, again, as early as this afternoon, if the need be. If there are not zones that are open, then you've got a nice implementation plan that you can file away for the future. Finally, I just want to be really super clear. This is not intended in any size, shape, fashion, or form to be adversarial to Mr. Mitchell. We know and respect Mr. Mitchell and what he has meant to this city over years and years. This is simply a prophylactic filing, if you will, for the commission, that in case there's an open zone, we would like to put our name in the hat for it. And you have an implementation plan in front of you. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate the opportunity to speak.
Just one question. TOPRO has an emergency zone already, right?
Yes, sir. Or at least we're one of the current
So
ones.
this would be an expansion, not a new application?
No, it's not a new application. And then only to the extent that there's an opening. I know that you guys are going to take that up later on, and so we just wanted to have our hand raised if and when there's a current zone holder who's ineligible for whatever reason. If that zone is open, we'd very much like to be considered for it.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
The next name I see here, the first name I can read is Josh. Is the last name Lee?
Yes, Chairman.
Yeah, Mr. Lee, welcome.
Thank you.
And you're with Thompson Burton?
Yes, sir. With the Thompson Burton Law Firm. I'm speaking today on behalf of our client, STR Towing. And we've got 3 requests for you all during this meeting. The first is an opposition to the renewal for Dad's Towing as well as West Nashville. You heard a significant amount of information during the last meeting and deferred it for additional information here. We do have some of that information and would like to provide our interpretation of some of the questions that you all had. The second request for us is actually a request for sanctions against both Dad's and West Nashville with regard to false statements that were presented during the last hearing, in addition to potentially some of the documents that were submitted. And our final request is to approve and assign STR's towing application for an emergency record zone to the extent that one is available. So very briefly, several questions that came up from the commission during the last meeting. One was with regard to, does the commission even have the authority to ask about the ownership of some of these companies? And the answer is a resounding yes. Under Rule 300 of your rules, an initial application for an emergency wrecker has to include information about the extent of ownership of its owners. In addition, it's got financial requirements and a significant amount of information that I'm sure you all see when you see these new applications come in. As Mr. Rooker has stated on several occasions, anytime there's a change in that application information, they present it to you all for approval. So absolutely, you've got the ability, authority, and in our opinion, the obligation to find out the ownership structure of the wreckers that are licensed by you. The other question that was brought up is whether or not the, I believe, November approved change in partnership could be considered a change in ownership as it was presented. And on behalf of STR Towing, respectfully, we say the answer is no. The definitions, the provisions of Metro Code say that neither the emergency wrecker permit nor an emergency zone may be sold, assigned, mortgaged, or otherwise transferred. Otherwise transferred is obviously a very broad, plain language term. There is a reference to change in control and other provisions that were later enacted. So our response would be that you should not use that as a way to interpret a previously enacted code provision. Otherwise transferred is broad enough to completely cover a change in control. Based on that, the information that was submitted to you all was just not accurate. And all due respect to everyone that's seeking their permits, but the board has a responsibility to make sure it has accurate information, and it's not been accurate. Specifically, the testimony or the information that you were presented during the previous hearing included that there was a merger, which is obviously different than adding a partner. There was a very clear statement there was a change of control that occurred, and specifically that occurred for both Dad's and West Nashville, as you all saw from the press releases. Further, I know there was a comment that potentially an approval of that change in partner might qualify as a board approval of this change of ownership. Even if the board were to find that, under the emergency record transfer, there has to be a public hearing that occurs before that would happen, and that did not happen. So that's the basis for our request today. You'll hear further information about SDR Towing's current capabilities, its current application that's here. So respectfully, we ask for those three things.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. And the next name on the list is Emily Lamb Winstead.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Emily Lamb with Winstead PC Law Firm here on behalf of Dad's Towing Company and West Nashville Wrecker. Respectfully asking you to renew the zones that have been assigned to these two companies. This is a very upstanding business operation. They require federal, state, and local background checks on all employees. They have a no gun policy for any of their drivers, so no one is ever carrying guns. They require an MVR. They pull an MVR which is an exhaustive traffic record to confirm suitability of their drivers. So they're very upstanding. They're very transparent in all of their dealings. Very clean operation. They are not surrendering their zone voluntarily, nor have they ever received a notice of violation. Those are the two instances in which these zones are revoked or taken away. They have never received a notice of violation, not only in the current circumstances, but ever in the history of these operations. So you've got two very upstanding companies that have never had a notice of violation. The Tennessee Highway Patrol recently investigated these exact same allegations regarding the ownership because SDR made the exact same allegations to the Tennessee Highway Patrol in an effort to interfere with our business there, to get us removed from their approved list of operators. They did an extensive investigation. We met with the lieutenant for several hours. They had an attorney review our legal documentation and ultimately found in our favor regarding this ownership structure. We are prepared to do the same thing here. We will work with Metro Legal to provide the ownership documentation for their review.
Was the same issue before the Tennessee Highway Patrol as before this board today? It
was regarding the ownership structure and the change in ownership.
Okay.
Or the alleged change in ownership, I'll say. And again, with respect to what was said at the last meeting, merger or acquisition or partnership, my clients are not lawyers. They're not business lawyers. To some extent, those are legalese and semantics that a business lawyer might understand, but a gentleman who's owned a record company for 20 or 30 years, it's a merger and acquisition. You hear them together all the time. So, to the common lay person who's not educated in the field of business law, that was not an intentional misstatement to the extent there was a misstatement. So we just would respectfully ask that y'all renew our permits today. As we have applied for these. We did have a public hearing back in November. It was voted on, and we're ready and willing to work with Metro Legal for any future investigation that needs to occur. At which point, if it needs to come back before the board, we would certainly be prepared to defend any allegations at that point. But today, I think that there's no basis for denying our permits, or the renewals, rather.
And your clients are Dad's
Dad's
West
Towing
Nashville,
and West Nashville.
And Guardian?
They're all the same. It's Dad's and West Nashville. Guardian is now a partner with
Right.
Dad's and West Nashville. Yes,
So
sir.
you represent all of them?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that closes our part of the public.
Chair, I think we have one more late arrival that would like to speak.
Okay.
Good afternoon. My name is Erin Coleman, and I'm an attorney for Jake Stewart, and I just wanted to touch base with you all about what's happening on that case. I'm representing him on the charges that are pending, and it is my from my background as being a criminal defense attorney for the past 8.5 years, that I know the charge that y'all are most concerned with here in Davidson County will most likely be dismissed. In Davidson County, we just tend not to.
Which charge?
It's my understanding that it's the possession of marijuana charge. Those are not, the simple possession charges are not something that typically at this point the district attorney's office prosecutes, specifically because the capability of even a drug dog to detect the difference between THC and legal CBD is not possible. So within Davidson County, that has been the path for some time now. We also do believe that the other charge will be resolved. It can't be resolved within the next week or so, just due to docketing. And so what we would ask Your Honor, sorry. One day, Paul, one day, Patrick, one day, Patrick.
Yeah, no.
There's a Division III seat up for you if you want it.
Easy now, easy. You were doing good till then.
I'm sorry. Listen, I've been upstairs in court all morning, so
I
I'm
want it
sorry.
on the record, I have not applied for Division 3. I like having my second cup of coffee before going into the office.
Understandable.
Listen, I'm going to ask you, though.
Yes.
I've heard some discussion about the biggest concern is the 1.5 grams of marijuana cigarette.
Yeah.
But when I've got the warrants in front of me.
Yes.
And I'm more concerned about the pistol being on him and the surveillance, the very last sentence here. And I know we're not supposed to engage in this necessarily here. Well, I just want you to know I'm more concerned about the surveillance video showing him reaching for the pistol that was in his belt. That the police officer viewed and put in the affidavit.
Well,
and so that would be my interest when we get to a disciplinary hearing, if we do.
Yes.
And I understand this is set for what, later in July for the appearance docket?
It is just for the settlement docket on July 25th. And to that extent, what I would say is, one, we have not seen, because this case just came down, we have not been able to look at the body camera footage for this particular case to see exactly what the officer saw on the surveillance video. I would assume, although maybe
They
it's
did
wrong
find
to
a
assume,
pistol on him.
but he's allowed to have a pistol
Yeah.
on him. We live in Tennessee. Don't we have constitutional carry? I mean, right? So he's allowed to have a pistol, and he doesn't even have to have a permit or a license for it anymore, I don't think, because we live in Tennessee and we have constitutional carry, whether we like it or not. So, sorry, little soapbox. So he's allowed to have a pistol on him. That's not illegal. That's why he's not charged with a crime for having a pistol on him.
I'd like to have a pistol on him when he's carrying marijuana.
That I understand,
Yeah.
and I have discussed that with him. But with that, with the marijuana charge, that's what I do believe will be dismissed quite easily in General Sessions Court. I could be wrong about that, obviously. But what we would ask y'all to do today is, I understand that the commission wants to defer this matter until the criminal cases are resolved, which I appreciate. But what we would ask, since this is Mr. Stewart's primary and only source of income, that you place him on probation, his license on probation, so that he can continue to work. He is willing to abide by any restrictions that y'all put on him. He understands, and we have had a discussion about what he can and cannot carry with him while on his bike. And so we would ask y'all to put him on probation at this point in time. Until the deferment is finished.
Would you be acceptable to just deferring the disciplinary matter until it's adjudicated?
Well, the problem right now that we have is that Mr. Stewart has no other income. So if we just defer it and we maintain the full suspension, then we have a young man who has no income and for the foreseeable future, because this could take, the way that the General Sessions dockets are working right now, we're looking at probably a late August or September trial docket date, and that might even be moved if they can't get witnesses here, right? So it could be as much as 5 to 6 months before this case is resolved.
Commissioner Rogers, it is on our agenda for discussion a little bit later.
Yes, and we, Chair, we do have some of our officers who witnessed this coming for testimony if the board would like to hear from them.
Oh, okay. All right. I think that closes the public comment period. Now, back to some of the procedural things. Have all the commissioners had an opportunity to view the minutes plus the email that came out with some revisions to the minutes?
Yes.
All right. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from the June meeting?
So moved.
Second? All right. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All right. And Ms. Jeffley, is those minutes that are going in the record the revised ones, right?
Those will be the revised, corrected minutes. Yes,
All right,
sir.
let this record show that that is the one that we just voted on, okay?
It will.
All right, thank you, sir. All right, Director Rooker, we now have the consent items, and there are quite a few on there.
Yes, sir. As we do pretty much every month, we have a few new OPVH companies that have applied to operate. Right now, we currently stand at 525 OPVH vehicles. All of these vehicles have, their applications have been in our office and they're timely. The applications are in order and we would move for their approval.
Who picked the name Jesus is Love Deluxe Transportation? No, yeah. Interesting.
I'll make a motion
Yeah.
to approve the following OPVH new company applications, and I'll try not to butcher some of these. Starting with the first one, ASIA Transportation, Big Green Tractor Tours LLC, Black Limo of Nashville, Black Line Transportation, Compassion Care Solution, DJ Transport, Elite Black Transportation, Haven Black, Jesus is Love Deluxe Transportation, Kaya Expluride, LM Transportation, Luxury One, Meet in the Middle, Royalty Lux Transportation, Wub Nesh Tarif, Nashville Executive Transportation, and Porter, okay, there you go, Porter GT LLC. Thank you.
All right, there's a motion on the table. Is there a second? Second. Okay. I have, before we vote, I have one question, Director Rooker. Big Green Tractor. Okay.
They are doing TD, they were running the shuttle.
So they did apply for 2 ET permits, were granted 1. So what they've taken now is the second vehicle that they would have used as a ET vehicle that was not approved. It is an enclosed white shuttle van. Director Rooker informed them that they would need to change the name on the side of that shuttle to take off tours, and they're going to use that enclosed van for point A to point B, prearranged transportation to the airport to bring folks to and from their other ET-approved vehicle.
It's not a tractor?
It is not a tractor. They actually have no tractors anymore. That's a bit of a misnomer. They no longer operate a tractor. They operate an extended cab truck convertible as their main ET vehicle, and this is a fully enclosed van, which has now been changed to not say tours on the side at Director Rooker's request.
And we did make them change where it says tour, it did have tour, and they have completed that, and it doesn't say tour anymore. So they're just running from the airport to downtown.
And this has nothing to do with off the wagon tours, which
No, ma'am, no,
we
nothing,
had a
not at all.
long,
No,
long.
nothing to do with it, totally different company.
There's no Big Green Tractor at all anymore. They have sold that to a farm, and they've pivoted to a different type of a vehicle on their ET side of operations.
Thank you.
All right, any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Rooker, we then have OPVH request to change address.
Yes, sir. This is, we do this every month also. Anytime the original application is changed or any changes made to it, it has to come before the commission for approval, and these are just address changes for these drivers. And all their paperwork is in order. Staff recommends approval.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to request to approve the request to change address for Anna and Ava Limo, 1111 Logistic LLC, and Hum Ride Share LLC.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. All right, I think we're still on consent items, right, Director Rooker?
Yes, sir, we're still on consent agenda. OPVH request to modify ownership. These are just adding partners to their company. All the applications are in order. Staff recommends approval.
I have some questions in light of some of the questions we've had in previous meetings about ownership additions and the implications of subtractions, if you will, at a later date, and whether that results in a potential change in ownership that would. So with respect to that being an issue that we are, that has been raised, and with respect to the staff's consent calendar addition of these, if a partner is subtracted or is removed or is no longer with, do we get those and as well? And is there someone to tell us at a later time that this has been a
We don't track that. We don't have a way to track that.
okay?
So in OPVH, I don't think that happens very
Okay.
often. I think it could happen, but we don't tell them if this changes or your partnership or you dissolve your LLC or whatever the situation is, we don't ask for that information back. I guess we could.
I don't have concerns with respect to the OPVH, and maybe the same provisions don't apply that we have in the other. So I don't have the same not concerns, but interest, I guess, with respect to what that means if we add the partners in these instances. So I'm happy to make a motion after there's discussion.
I was just adding from talking with Amanda, the implication's slightly different in the OPVH category because when a company of one maybe wants to add one more vehicle, if the vehicle's registered in the name of another individual, adding a partner is the only way for that company to grow by one and be two, which is certainly a much different scenario than how the code's reading for entertainment transportation, for records and things of that like. So I would say staff would be much less concerned about these additions as it's just one more black car coming into a company.
I have a question for legal. Is there any concern if we had different standards for OPVH versus entertainment vehicles in terms of how we treat adding new partners and original partners rolling off?
I think we're looking at the title as a whole to look into that issue.
Thank you. Because I concur with Commissioner Penley that this is something that we've all brought up as a concern, and so I'd like to just be consistent with the law across all of everyone we regulate. Thank you.
And don't we still have the possibility that if there is an addition of a partner to the OPVH and then the old partner leaves, that the application that was approved has slid over to the new partner without us ever knowing?
I mean, it's a possibility, yes, sir, that could happen.
But it's not foreseen to be as significant of a concern as it is for other, like,
correct,
the entertainment transportation vehicles.
Generally, they're just adding another car and another driver to their company. So it's not, you know, if he were to leave, then you would lose that other driver, and I guess that driver would. So if they have a third one, they got to add them as a partner as well. So you may have a fleet of 10 cars. You got 10 different. You'd have 10 owners.
What would be involved in adding to the rule that we need to be notified or approved when someone rolls off?
And what I was going to add to it is with our modification of ownership form, what we're doing is background checking the new partner that's coming on to make sure they're in compliance to be a driver or an owner in the code. And then we're going again and checking the business license and the insurance, making sure that's all okay. Hypothetically, a modification of ownership should include a removal of a partner. We just don't get folks telling us that information. And I'm not sure how we would know if they do it.
I mean, we wouldn't know unless they just voluntarily told us. There's no rule or statute or ordinance that tells them they have to do that.
Are all the other areas self-reporting for change?
No, I guess that's the best way to answer that question. We rarely get, once a partnership is formed, that LLC is there. Whether someone drops out of that LLC or not is kind of hard for us to know. TD, follow up?
And Amanda pointed out that we do find out at annual renewal if that partnership has changed. But often if a partner has fallen off during the year, I have not seen in my years here many folks informing us.
But that can essentially mean a transfer of a permit through a new partner and then someone rolling off.
It could mean that someone dropped out of the LLC. Does that transfer a permit? I don't know. It still belongs to that LLC.
Yeah.
So just because somebody drops out of it, does that technically mean, oh, well, you were the person that got it originally. Now you're leaving, you're giving the permit to the LLC. So you're not giving it to an individual, so to speak.
Yeah. Sounds like we have more discussion on that. But in the interest of time, I make a motion to approve the OPVH request to modify ownership for JLA Luxury Ride LLC, Maxter GG LLC, and SP Luxury LLC.
Is a motion on the table? Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, moving along, Director Rooker, we got the General Wrecker and Towing Services new company application.
Yes,
White
sir.
Star.
White Star Transportation LLC. If you see a typo in the LLC, it's because they filed it with a typo. So we always put it on your agenda, just like we receive it. But we've done our due diligence with this company. They're just going to be a general record company. And y'all remember that you have to be a general record company for a year before you can apply to be a non-consent towing company. All their paperwork is in order, and we have done our inspection, and we recommend approval.
I'll make a motion that we approve the application of White Stars Transportation LLC.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Do we know what kind of vehicles they have? How many, any C-Class vehicles?
I mean, were they?
It's in the application in the.
The one I inspected was just a general, like a wrecker. I don't know how to describe. Wasn't a
General Wrecker Service?
yeah, it's just a wrecker.
That's all right, TD.
We have two vehicles, a 5500 Dodge Ram, color white, and a Freightliner M2, color black.
So neither C-Class.
There's experts in the room that might be able to tell us if that's a Class C wrecker, but I don't believe so.
Okay, thank you.
All right, there's been a motion and a second, I believe, right?
Yes.
Okay. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposed? All right, the application is approved. And we're on to Emergency Wrecker Service request to change address.
Yes, sir. This is Smith Wrecker Service LLC. They're only asking to change the address of the office only. Their yard will stay where it is, and we've looked at their yard and everything's fine with Smith. So they're just asking for their offices to be relocated. Changing the application again has to come before the commission. Staff request approval.
Is there a motion?
I move to approve the change of address request from Smith's Record Services LLC to 1003 Buchanan Street, Suite B.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Director Rooker, we're now on to the Emergency Record Service. And as I recall, we had a public hearing on that. We closed the public hearing and we moved or continued it for, I think, some input from Metro Legal, correct?
Yes, sir, that is correct. We had a public hearing last month, and the public hearing was closed. The board asked legal to do some further research and to come back this month and give you some additional information, and I believe they're prepared to do so.
And we have a handout, right?
Yes. You can look at number 2 on your handout. It's on the second page. And so I think we're all aware after public comment that there's some discussion ongoing about Dad's towing and an alleged change in ownership. And so we are advising that basically to determine if a sale, assignment, or transfer took place in violation of the Metro Code, that an investigation be undertaken, which I think has kind of started already. And then in the meantime, since you have to approve the zones, similar to what we have done in the past, you can approve the zones however you see fit, leave them as the way they are with the condition that any approval of a zone for Dad's Towing or West Nashville be made contingent on the outcome of the TLC investigation.
Who's going to be doing the investigating?
I guess
I think Ricky and TD are going to be doing the investigating, and they can, of course, we will answer questions that they may have and confer with them, but I think the nitty-gritty is going to be TLC staff.
I believe we were promised a business attorney from Metro Legal, right? And we got the assistance of that.
We're planning on having a little help from Metro Legal's business folks that really can analyze the paperwork and as far as the ownership and all that.
So we can make a recommendation to the commission.
Would you be open to input from Mr. Lee and Ms. Winstead, who appear to be on opposing sides of this issue?
Yes, we will be speaking with them during the course of this investigation.
Okay.
I have a procedural question. Do we first approve the zones and then approve to whom the zones are assigned, or is it a single action?
We will look at the code to see if it's designated in there, but do you have any historical reference, TD?
The motion last year was to renew the zones as currently assigned. And that was included in the packet of the 2024 annual hearing. So that's the reference I would have.
And I just have a continuing concern with the growth and expansion in Nashville to continue to have zones that were probably very appropriate and accurate at the time they were initially done, but to have not shifted them since then. And there's supposed to be a timeliness in the response, and we have no information on how timely responses actually are. I realize we're not necessarily the customer, as I understand it. It is the enforcement group, police department or THP, whomever, that are the actual customers. But it seems like if we're supposed to be looking at the zones each year, we should be looking for something. And I just, with the shifting of development and where vehicles are likely to be, it's hard for me to believe the zones should still be the way they are with subsequent development. I'll stop talking.
Well, most of the zones and most of these things are drawn out. Like, look at the big pink zone up top. They probably don't get a whole lot of emergency calls to Oh, sorry. So, I'm not disagreeing that they don't need to be relooked at. I'm not disagreeing with you at all. They probably do. But that may have something to do with the size of the zones, is what runs through them, TD.
I will say in the time between the last meeting, Commissioner Claver performed what I thought was a pretty informative statistical analysis breakdown of the percentage of calls out to each of these zones. And although we do not have response time information available, we do have that breakdown that Commissioner Claver performed on what percentage is being towed out of each of these zones.
You know, I love some numbers. Question for you, and with apologies, I was not here last month, so can you do a TLDR for me on what's going on with Dad's Towing West Nashville and Guardian Fleet Services?
I think I'm gonna let legal do that.
So I think that essentially what we have is that STR has applied for a zone, and they would like a wrecker zone. They have also alleged, and if you weren't here last time, they passed out some documents, that Dad's Towing in West Nashville illegally transferred or sold their license and permits to Guardian Fleet Services in violation of the Metro Code. So that is why I think you have TowPro who came up in public comment and asked if there was an available zone to be considered along with STR. So I think that's the TLDR, but am I missing anything, Erica? TLDR?
I think you got it. That's the gist of it.
I appreciate that, thank you.
And again, if someone is approved as an emergency wrecker, can they be approved but not zoned? Does the approval require there to be a zone?
TD, could you please pull up section 68545? I think it's instructive here, and I think it might answer your question, Commissioner Butterworth. It's just long, so I don't think I think it would be easier to read if you can see it. Yes, go
Trying to
ahead.
understand, see if I understand your question. Can you be an emergency?
Can you
hold an emergency permit, a non-consent emergency permit without having a zone?
Yes, sir.
TD.
I don't think there'd be a point for us to issue an emergency permit if there was no zone to operate out of. I can give the context of last year's meeting where STR's application for an emergency zone was not denied on its merits. The commission simply made the decision not to reassign any of the zones. And so STR has applied again this year. Absent, you can be a non-consent tower, but not have an assigned zone, so you're not getting the police-initiated tow call-outs from DEC. So I don't think we'd issue an emergency zone permit and then you not have a zone to operate out of.
Mr. Chairman, if I could speak for at least one longtime member of the commission, maybe too long. I've always thought that whatever the police department wants, they should get. And if they're happy, I'm happy. I mean, I understand what the Commissioner's saying here. From a public policy position, I can see looking at it. But if they're the customer, and if they're okay with it, quite frankly, I'm okay with it.
And as I recall, I thought we had some testimony from officers that they were fairly satisfied with the response time from the emergency wreckers.
Yes, Chair, and they are present here today as well. I see Lieutenant Taylor Schmitz in the audience if you'd like to hear from Jonathan Massey or the impound lot. That is my recollection from last month. There was some anecdotal evidence of slow response times, but not formally tracked, so hard to know what to attribute that to. Could be traffic.
Yeah, there was some question about when the call actually went from dispatch or from the officer to the towing company.
And I think we're heading in a direction to be able to gather that data through technology. I believe we're headed down that road for sure.
Help me remember, when was the last time the zones were established?
I went back the last 10 years and found no substantive changes.
All right. So, and Commissioner Butterworth has brought up a question as, do we need to revisit the zones and the drawing of the zones? My first question is, what factors do we look at? I know Nashville's population and things have grown, but have they changed from before? And so I think the first thing I'd like to know is, what factors do we look at in drawing the zones to begin with?
And I think we would really need a lot of help from MPD to figure out if the zones need to be changed, they would be able to tell us. If any, smaller, larger, whatever, we would lean on them heavily to be able to do that.
TD, do you mind going
Sure.
back to the map? Oh, go ahead.
Chair, may I offer this section
that one's better.
685:45B1. Well, subsection B discusses the method of altering zones. Let me just step back for a minute and say that subsection A states that all the zones that were presently established shall continue as emergency record zones, with those licensees presently assigned to each zone continuing in the zones to which they are assigned. You have the authority to change the zones pursuant to subsection B1, which I'm going to read it in part. Once each year, the commission shall review the efficiency and suitability of the emergency record service zones which have been established, and shall by regulations make such changes as the traffic control in the area of the metropolitan government, the welfare of the public, and the safety of the motoring public shall require. So I think, to answer your question, Chair, pursuant to the code, the elements you would look at are traffic control and public safety.
So I think we're back to Commissioner Rogers' point, that is that the police have the best input on that information.
And then the second subsection there says the commission, on its own motion or on the petition of the chief of police, may alter the zones as well.
It's interesting, it switches from a mandatory shall each year and then a permissive may. It bothers me when, by legislation, there is a mandatory action to be done, but yet we're not truly doing anything.
So since I did the work, would you please, TD, go back to the map? Because we do have stats on, we can answer the question for how much each wrecker has in each zone. All right, so Bailey's, and this is a percentage of calls for the police initiated tows. That's the percentage I'm going to be reading off. So as a percentage of calls, which totaled 18,601, Bailey's had 9%, Chapman had 6%, Collier had 10%, Cotton's had 14%, Custom had 10%, Dad's had 12%, Donaldson had 6%, Martin's had 12%, Smith had 4%, Tommy had 4%, Topro had 4%, and West Nashville had 11%. If that gives us any sort of actual numbers around the calls for these zones.
And based upon the size of the county, that's pretty close. I would not expect that, you to have those percentages that close. It's
Yeah.
pretty close.
Yeah.
And probably your lower percentage tows were in the smaller emergency zone areas.
So the smallest is 4 and the highest is 14. So that doesn't feel like there's a predominant company in that list.
And 2 of those companies are together.
That's a fair point.
Seems
West and
pretty
Dad's, yeah.
large in comparison.
So if we combine Dad's and Topro, that's 16%.
No,
Oh, sorry.
Same, West.
Sorry, Dads and West.
They have almost a quarter of them.
Yeah, so if we combine Dads and West, that would be 23%. So almost a quarter.
On this topic, I will say there hasn't been an industry request for a evaluation of the zones, right? There's some competitive factors of folks who'd like to have one of the zones, but not that the current zones aren't.
That is
aren't
correct. We've
fair,
received
I guess.
no request to
Okay.
change the zone from anyone.
And again, I'm sorry if this was discussed last month, but is there have we ascertained that there was a violation of the code?
We have not.
No.
Okay.
I think right now Metro is recommending that we approve the zones as they are with the condition that there be an investigation about West Nashville and Dad's merger with, or whatever the right word is, partnership agreement with
Acquisition,
Guardian. Acquisition.
Mostly correct, Chair.
Okay.
I think we are just saying it's up to you how you want to approve the zones. Do you want to modify them as they are? That's not really legal's decision, but that you can approve a conditional zone for Dads in West Nashville pending the investigation outcome, where we can give a recommendation to the commission about this alleged change in ownership or control.
And playing the tape out, if the investigation determines that there was a violation of the code, are we then able to come back here and have a meeting about what to do with that zone, that emergency zone?
Well, I think we would have, first we would have to, there would be a disciplinary action issued against Dad's Towing or West Nashville. Then there would be a public hearing like we do for other discipline. And then there would be an outcome from that. And then that could leave, I can't really see because I'm too old to see that on over there. But I'm assuming there's two zones, one for Dad's and one's for West.
Yes.
And I think that the outcome of the investigation will determine if there's two open zones
Okay.
that could be assigned.
And then we could take up STR's application and TowPro's letter application, or letter of willingness. Yeah. And am I reading that map correctly, that West Nashville is the brown that seems to be on the west, seems to be a little bit of Joelton down further south and then into the Bellevue, what I'd call the West Nashville Bellevue area, West Meade, and that Dad's is the purple right in the center of the city?
The top,
Oh, the top.
right here.
Yeah, Dad's is up top.
Okay.
Orange.
Yeah.
The largest lavender piece.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Is that Smith's that's right in the middle of the city then? The darker purple?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, well, based on the statistical breakdown of the police initiated tow figures, I would make a motion to keep the established zones pending an investigation to see if there was a violation warranting discipline for Dad's and West Nashville being acquired by Guardian Fleet Services. Does that motion make sense?
Are you indicating that to confirm the zone designations and the current holders for those, with the exception that for Dad's and West Nashville, that their continuance of having that zone is subject to,
Contingent on-
or
Yeah.
so that
Subject-
everybody else
Yeah.
has understanding that they are in place for the next year. Dad's and West Nashville are contingent on, that they will continue to hold it through a determination and a hearing and a disciplinary, but could be changed during this year. So,
Yes, ma'am.
and it's because there has been no information presented to us that would warrant a change in the zone or a reassignment of the zone holders.
Yes.
And if that's true, I'd
because
be glad to second.
We haven't had any information from the police otherwise, and the statistical analysis does not show any wide preference according to the maps for one company over another in terms of the calls.
Yeah. Two companies together having the largest landmass, it appears, and the most calls. But
And we'll review that
Right.
when we review the ownership change. It's a very long motion.
Jeffrey, are you able to get that motion down? Is there enough specificity for it?
I've got something good down here, and I will review the tape again before I put forth the proposed minutes.
Commissioner Butterworth, did I hear you say you're going to second the motion?
I did.
Okay.
Sorry.
Is there any further discussion on the motion?
I just think we need to be clear that it's pending, that we may make a change pending the outcome of an investigation. I don't want to go right to, we're absolutely going to have a hearing, we're absolutely going to, because we don't know, right? I just want to be clear that we're approving this pending an investigation around sort of allegations of some ownership
that.
problems.
Yes,
Okay,
absolutely.
thank you. I appreciate that.
All right, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Director Urquhart, I know you have a lot on your plate, but I would like to bring up something that Commissioner Butterworth brought up today, since we do have an obligation that starts with the word shall. Let's find out what factors we need that one should look at when making a determination of whether the geographical boundaries of the zones are appropriate.
We will definitely look into that, yes, sir.
Yeah.
And we know shall means must from my previous employer.
There's a story behind that I need to hear someday, but I would like to know what factors to look at and bring them up to the commission when we do this a year from now again, and start bringing some evidence in, some testimonial evidence, most likely it's going to be, but bring some evidence in so we make a sound finding of facts.
We can do that, yes, sir. We'll be sure to put that on our to-do list.
Thank you, sir. Now, we're moving into the disciplinary hearing, Director
the
Rooker.
new
The
zone.
new zone
Oh,
application.
I'm sorry, yes.
I would, if it would be all right, it seems appropriate that we defer once again on this matter, and I don't know if we have to defer to a specific meeting or defer to the outcome of the investigation.
You can defer indefinitely, and then once we have our findings, we can notify STR and then put them back on the agenda. I believe that's appropriate, isn't it, legal?
If so, I'd be glad to so move.
Is that a motion to defer STR's application indefinitely? Yes, sir. Pending the investigation? Is there a second? Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Now we're on to the disciplinary hearing, I think, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. What do we have here, Mr. Director?
Transportation vehicle, big drag bus. Commission heard this last month, and I believe some documentation has come to legal's attention as late as just last night, about 5 o'clock or somewhere at some point in time, and they have not had time to examine and to look into that. So I believe legal is asking for it to be referred until the August meeting. I'll let them speak to that if they would like to.
Yes, we're just recommending that we defer to give us a little more time to review this settlement proposal.
Is this a mutual request for a deferral?
Mutual meaning on behalf of Cloud Rides and.
Correct.
Yes, it is.
Okay, on behalf of both, all the parties.
That's my understanding, yes.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Go ahead and state the motion.
Oh, sorry. A motion to defer action, the disciplinary hearing on entertainment transportation company Cloud Rides, doing business as Big Drag Bus.
Would that be to the August meeting?
I think, yes, that should be sufficient time.
To August.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion any opposed? Motion carries. Next up is the taxi cab driver Mohsen Musad for alleged violations of Metro Code.
Yes,
Director
sir.
Rooker?
This particular driver, and I'm not sure if he's here today. Oh, he is here today? Okay. This gentleman, we have evidence of this gentleman overcharging people, and not just a little bit of an overcharge of staggering amounts. We have an affidavit, I think, TD, from a lady, said he tried to charge her $500 to take her a couple, 3 blocks from the Savannah Banana baseball game. They did settle on $150, which is that's still way too much money. He should have run his meter. He has overcharged several times. We have several complaints on him for that. He has been suspended from the airport for overcharging. He can't even work at the airport. We have our officers here, a couple of officers here, who witnessed him change lanes and come at them head on, and just had to whip back over into the other lane of traffic to avoid a head-on collision. If you would like to hear from them, I'm sure you would. We'll do that at the appropriate time. We are going to really be bringing before you in months to come cab drivers who will not follow the regulations and the code. They're overcharging, they're running flat fees, and as we find these drivers and we can confirm that they're doing these things, they're going to come before this commission, and y'all can decide if they deserve or still need to be cab drivers. We are recommending that we revoke this driver's permit, and I'm sure the commission can hear testimony from our officers if that's what commission would like to do.
Well, given the severity of the sanction that's being recommended by Director Rooker, I think we ought to go ahead and put some testimony on the record.
Yes, sir, I agree.
Can you point out or call up
Officers, the officers come up. Be sure you hit the green button and identify yourselves and what you do for NDOT.
Let me swear them in first, okay?
Yes, sir, sorry.
All right, gentlemen, do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? All right, and would you please introduce yourself to the commission first? Your names.
Nathaniel Nave, I'm an
Speak up, please.
Yes, sir. Nathaniel Nave, I'm an enforcement officer for the Nashville Department of Transportation.
And you are?
Officer Alexander Hartman, compliance officer too with Nashville Department of Transportation.
Mr. Nave, how do you spell your last name?
Nave.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Rooker, do you want to go ahead and do the direct examination? I'll kind of step back.
Sure, I'll just ask the officers to briefly explain the night that you encountered this cab driver, how his driving was and what the situation was to the commission.
So we were returning back to the office around 23:30. We decided to turn down 6th Avenue North beside Bridgestone, and this driver was coming at a minimum of 30, maximum of 40 oncoming traffic. And we had to slam on our brakes. We had nowhere to go, and he would have hit us if he hadn't hit his brakes in time. And I had got out of the vehicle. Officer Hartman was driving. And I got out of the vehicle, and I asked him why he was driving so reckless and why he was trying to seriously hurt somebody or worse. and he said a traffic officer had directed him to go oncoming lanes. And when Officer Hartman and I got to the end of 6th Avenue, there was no traffic officer there. So he did that on his own accord and recklessly drove oncoming lanes.
Mr. Massat, why don't you come have a seat up here so you can hear? You don't have to stand the whole time that way. Do you have anything further to add, Mr. Nave?
No, sir.
Okay. Mr. Hartman?
All I can say is coming. I agree with my fellow officer. He was in the oncoming traffic lane. When we passed, there was no directing officer on 6 North saying that anybody could go around. There was an absence of an officer. We were lied to, and his driving was unsatisfactory at most, or at least, sorry.
TD.
Could I ask a question, Chair?
Sure.
Could you speak to how you reported the incident to the TLC staff?
So I have a copy of the email I sent Director Rooker if you guys would like to see it. I had emailed it about 10 minutes after the violation.
And I think we have a copy. Yeah, and any member of the commission, of course, is welcome to ask questions as well. Mr. Massad, do you have some questions you want to ask of the officers?
No, but this time when it happened, is 2 truck, big truck, he close all road.
Can I ask you a favor? I'll give you an opportunity to move over to that seat there, and you can tell us your side, okay? All right. Is that it? Yes. All right. Thank you, gentlemen. It was brought out to me by Commissioner Butterworth that they might have been $125, not $150.
Was it 125? Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay. And I think is the affidavit, Director Worker, the affidavit you referred to, the one by Laureen Green?
Yes, sir, that is correct.
We need to have that made part of the record for the hearing today.
Yes, and I have been in touch with Ms. Green, and she lives about 4.5 hours away in Alabama. That alleged overcharge occurred during the Savannah Bananas game back in May. She is available today telephonically. If we'd like to contact her, she'd be happy to speak to the commission, but was not able to make it up here for this hearing.
But she did submit this statutory, it's called a statutory declaration, but it is also notarized, so I'm going to call it an affidavit. All right, do you have a copy that you can put in the record?
Yes, sir.
All right. Is that the proof, Director Rooker?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Ms.
That'd be all
Massad,
we
why
have.
don't you move over to a chair by the table and make sure the green light's on, okay? Oh, that they, yeah, once you, I guess we,
If we could also have in the record that the email that you received from the airport regarding the suspension.
Yes, ma'am.
Sir, what cab company are you working for?
Point of order. Do we need to swear him in?
Oh, yeah, you're absolutely right. All right. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I swear.
Okay. Who do you work for?
Yellow cab.
Okay. Doug, I forgot your last name. I apologize.
Tremble.
Tremble. Mr. Tremble, are you here on behalf of?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Why don't you tell us your side of what happened regarding the first part about driving on the wrong side of the road and everything?
Yeah, when driving 6th Avenue, it's 2 truck, he close all road, and we have big line, one he move by one. And when it's come my turn, when I turn, he come in the same way. But every car, if you look for camera, if you bring camera for 6th Avenue, all car moving, because 2 truck, big truck, and same way, he close all 6th Avenue. But this is happen, I did.
You received a letter from Director Rooker about attending here today, right?
Yeah, I made sure he had a letter.
Okay. In that letter, there's an allegations that you have been overcharging people for taxi rides.
Yeah, his first 125 is not happening.
Has he been provided a copy of the affidavit from Ms. Green?
Yeah,
It was in the packet mailed
yes,
to
in
him?
its packet,
Okay.
yes, sir.
Did you read the packet that was mailed to you?
Yeah.
All right. Do you disagree with Ms. Green's statements about being overcharged?
Because it's not happening. Because when I read it, she say, if I call for police and I do something wrong, why I call for police? What she say, me, I call for police and I charge here every minute I wait. If I do something wrong, why I call for police?
Have you been suspended at the airport for overcharging?
Yes.
Was that true?
Yeah, I charge, but these people, he stand in gas station. Most drivers say if you can wait for gas station, store, what you can do. But I charge him $65, I agree for this. But he stop in gas station.
Are you running your meter?
No, we have flat rate from airport.
It looks like in
Yeah,
some of these
$30.
complaints, you're not running your meter.
Yeah, because we have flat rate, $30 and plus each person extra $2. We run meter after West End or Overland or downtown. We run meter, but in downtown we have flat rate $30 from airport. And I work 2 years, almost 3 years in company. This first time happened with me.
Were you running your meter on Saturday, May 10th, when the complaint came through from the Savannah Banana baseball ride?
No, I don't run.
You were not running your meter?
No.
Were you going to the airport during that?
What?
It was not an airport run.
No, it's not airport run.
Why weren't you running your meter?
I forget, but I don't charge him. She say I get for 7. I send 7 people from stadium, but when we have stadium, he close road. When we come in early, people who come early is come straight almost 2 miles.
Is it
But-
normal to forget to run your meter?
No.
Thank you.
Do we have a receipt from the Savannah Banana rides, any sort of evidence from the
She paid, I
complainant?
believe she paid cash.
Okay.
Mr. Trimble, any commentary on this driver for us?
Yes. I didn't have to come here today. As a matter of fact, I wasn't going to. Taking the day off.
No such thing.
I hear you. I believe everything that was turned in. He's guilty of sin. I don't believe a word he says. Do I think it's out of character for this gentleman? He's been with me 3 years. I believe it's out of character. I mean, frustration has set in on some of these drivers, and we all know the reasons why. If you will allow me with a 30-day suspension and let me see that restitution is made to the people in Alabama and handle this in-house, maybe with 30 days without a permit, 45, I believe I can turn this failure into a success. That's why I came on down. I do believe the allegations that was made. It's happening at every cab company. It's so frequent now because of the frustrations of the way the things are in the business. This is out of character for this gentleman. Up until this period of time, I have had no complaints on him whatsoever until this. I'm just saying, 30 days, whatever you guys decide, I will abide by. I will make sure restitution's made to the people in Alabama, which he's already agreed to. And I can handle this in-house if Mr. Rooker and the board agrees with whatever suspension you guys deems fair. And that's why I came on down. I think I can turn this failure into a success. I need this gentleman on my fleet. I don't abide by this, and Mr. McNally and everybody knows that I'm toughest in town with my guys. So if you guys will just permit me and come up with some kind of solution that, I'll take care of it, I promise you. So that's all I got to say, you guys.
Thank you.
How long's Mr. Massad been working with you?
Probably about 3 years and a half, something like that.
And is this the first complaint?
Up until this point, I've had none. I'm not saying there wasn't any out of sight. There's a caught and the uncaught. I'm just saying none had come to my desk before this period of time.
Well, and we know that there was incidents at the airport.
At the airport, 30 days. Well,
And
sure, he
he's
was
admitted
guilty.
to that already.
He was guilty.
Can you help me understand, Mr. Trimble, the mindset of a cab driver who would turn off the meter and then try to charge someone $500 for such a short ride? Like, you mentioned the frustration. Like, what's going on?
Well, this is something we've all talked about for the past decade with, everybody that's been here, that sat in Mr. Rooker's place. The illegal taxis, which Mr. Rooker just got July 1st, it took effect where they can get a fine, and the illegal taxis is running rampant for 15 years. They're taking the cab drivers as business. Uber and Lyft are not held to the highest accountability as such. They don't have to jump through the hoops that a cab driver has to get their permit. They're not on a level playing field. The business is down, and these illegals that just blatantly go down here and have a disregard for the law, their frustration, a cab driver that gets their permit through the license through the TLC office and does everything fair and square, their frustration and stress levels just through the roof, and that's every company in town. It's I don't know where we're going, but that's where I feel all of it's coming from. And when they say Uber and Lyft have surge hours and charge $500 from here to Brentwood on a Friday night, what's going through their mind? Hey, why can't we do that? Which they can't, but that's what's going on, and we've all heard it. We've all heard it for many, many, many years. Your chair can tell you. But I will commend Mr. Rooker's office. It's took 15 to 2 decades to get these illegal taxis up, something in the ordinance to make these illegal, and now the Nashville Police Department is going to be enforcing this, to my knowledge of what I was informed, and they're going to be fined and ticketed and whatever, which is going to help. That just started July 1st of this year, so we've been dealing with this forever.
Yeah, I hear you. And, I'm part of a lot of the Nashville visitors groups, and I remember this woman coming on to the forum. I'm embarrassed as a citizen of Nashville that someone would be charged $500.
Absolutely.
I understand the frustration. I hear you, and it's unacceptable to turn off your meter and charge someone $500 for that kind of ride. That's it makes the city look bad.
When you have probably they're uncountable, and someone can stick Bob's Taxi on the side of their cab and go down to Lower Broadway and pick up our tourists and people in town on conventions, and there's no repercussions up until now, something's wrong.
Yep.
But it's going to change. It started July 1st, and I've been very happy about that. And I can thank this man's office for finally getting it done.
Well, thank you for coming down here today. I appreciate your testimony.
And just to add, Chair, it is now criminal. It's a criminal offense to operate a cab without a permit or operate a fake cab. It's also a criminal offense for Uber and Lyft to bring a ride downtown and then solicit a ride. They cannot solicit rides. They can't hail people on the side of the road. That is now a criminal offense. It's a Class C misdemeanor. If they are committing a misdemeanor at the time they get caught for doing that, it becomes a felony. So it's a pretty stiff fine.
Wait, if they are committing a misdemeanor at the time?
If they're committing a misdemeanor at the time of it would become a felony, correct. So if they're I don't know, they're driving down the street with beer in their hand and they're picking people up.
Oh, I see. Okay.
They're committing
some other misdemeanor.
another misdemeanor
And
at
they
the
commit
time.
this at the same time, then it
Yes, sir.
enhances to
I
a
might not have
felony.
explained that very well,
Okay.
but
That's
then it
all right.
becomes a felony.
And this is in the Tennessee code now?
Yes, sir. We
Passed by the
got,
legislature?
we got it passed by the legislature this year.
Who
We sure-
sponsored it?
I knew you were gonna ask me that. Now, you don't remember who sponsored it, but, Darren Jernigan in the mayor's office was very instrumental and helpful in getting this passed, and we're gonna try to get some other things done. In enforcement, it's very difficult for our enforcement staff to implement your
Right.
rules. It's very difficult, so we're looking at some other things to make some more changes, in those areas.
There were 4 photographs of a yellow cab in our packet. What was the relevance of those?
I think the lady from Alabama just took them.
Yes,
She's
that,
one.
that was,
Okay.
Mrs. Green submitted those as part of her Hub Nashville complaint, and that is purporting to show the yellow cab dropping them off at the hotel.
I would like to make them an exhibit to her affidavit, okay?
Will do.
All right. It looks like we have 3, unless I missed something, it looks like we have 3 possible violations here. One is the erratic, dangerous driving. The second is overcharging Miss Green, I think first name's Lorraine Green. And then maybe consideration of the being suspended from the airport, but I don't know if that falls under our
It
purview.
really doesn't, but it just shows a pattern of,
Okay.
of what he's been doing. And
Falls
he-
under my jurisdiction. I'll,
Yes,
I'll
sir.
take care of that.
Yes, sir. He'll take care
All
of
right,
that
so
for us.
would it be fair to say we have 2 clear violations and evidence? And while Mr. Messiah has said he didn't do that, I think he's admitted that you did charge her $125 for Miss Green, right?
No.
You're going to say no to that too?
Yeah, 125 no.
What did you charge her?
Maybe I remember between 35, 40, because I drive around when it close.
Between what? 75?
No, 35.
35, okay.
Between. I don't remember, but also when you close the stadium, when you turn around, interstate. We don't go straight for 3rd Avenue.
She got awfully fired up over not being overcharged.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, over $35.
Right.
Yeah.
And-
$35 seems like the amount that she was quoted on the phone, so I certainly would not have done this kind of statement if I was overcharged by $3 to $5.
Director Urkel, you had something else to add? Or?
Chair, we work very well with this company, and all we're trying to accomplish by doing this is to set some kind of standard and let these drivers know that we're doing all we can. We work with the companies. It's great to work where they're great to work with. We actually did this, got this law changed for them to help them. We're in great partnership with the companies, and we're trying to stay that way. The drivers, I understand their frustrations. I understand what they go through, and then hopefully the fake cabs will be out of here directly, because about the first 2 or 3 get arrested, word's going to travel that that's the thing now. We just want them to follow the rules. We do not want enforcement. We want compliance, and that's all I'm asking for. And we would be okay with some kind of suspension here if that's what the commission would want to do. But we're just trying to set a clear message that we're going to start cracking down on these drivers.
So you're interested in general deterrence?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. And we're going to continue this. The ones that we can prove, like we had a complaint today, overcharged them carrying out. They don't turn in any information, and we don't have any way to go forward with our investigation. We don't have anything to investigate. So they knew the cab company, but they didn't know the cab number. They didn't have the permit number. They don't have the information that we need to go forward. But if we can prove and have proof, or have people do affidavits or things of this nature of overcharging, they are going to come before this commission.
In light of the affidavit and Mr. Trimble's admission of that he thinks he's guilty,
Let me remind, please, I didn't mean to interrupt, but let me remind, I have promised the people restitution, and he's agreed to the difference between the 35 and the 125, whether he continues a guilty or not guilty, whatever, I'm gonna make sure the restitution's made. And I know Mr. Rooker knows that I'll get that done if I say I'm gonna get it done, so that's.
I believe
that's
you, and
gonna be
I
made.
think you should do that anyway for the reputation of your
absolutely.
company. But what I'm saying is, I am supporting a revocation instead of a suspension because there has been no forthcoming honesty from the cab driver in terms of admitting or apologizing for what's happened.
You're saying that as a position, not
As a
motion,
position,
right?
not a
Yeah,
motion.
yeah. Do we have the discretion to suspend? And we do, as opposed to revoking?
You
or-
can suspend, you can revoke, or put him on some kind of probation.
And what is
But
staff's
we-
recommendation?
First, we've got to make a decision on each of the violations, and then we go to the punishment.
When you say decision, whether we accept them to be truth,
Yeah, the
truthful?
and Metro or legal. Can we make a motion where both violations are in there, or do we need to separate them out and take one at a time?
I think it would be okay to take them together in one motion,
All right.
as long as you specify which code section he violated.
All right, we may need a little assistance with that, but we also, if there's a motion made to find that Mr. Masad has committed a violation, we need to make sure the motion states some factual basis and the code section as was just suggested. So it might be better to take one at a time.
Either way is fine. I think it's in your discretion.
So the Metro Code 672-250A would be the overcharging? Is that right?
Yes.
What is, for lack of a better term, bad driving code section?
There is a catch-all provision later on in the code about following all state, local laws. Look to legal over there.
Legal tell you, but there is a, like I said, code provision that allows, that says if they're violating any state or local law, that they can receive a citation for that. He did not receive a citation, as it wasn't witnessed by MPD, and our officers, can't pull people over. So they're just told you what they witnessed of this driver.
Mr. Nave, you got your... Well, come on up and tell us what it is. How about that?
The code this gentleman violated would be 672.430F. Drivers shall follow all state, legal, and federal laws.
So 6.772.43.
No,
it's
sir.
just
6.72.
Yeah, 6.72.430, section F.
Thank you.
Thank
Yes,
you.
sir.
We would bring the commission's attention to the fact that the driver has only been noticed in his charge letter, the violation letter, with 6.72.250A, the
The
fare
overcharging.
section. The overcharging, the fare section.
All right, so we're down to one violation for consideration by the commission. Anybody got interested in making a motion?
I guess I'm impressed that his boss supervisor has been able to get the agreement for the repayment. I agree with my fellow commissioner that the concern about the attitude, but if I heard him correctly, he would like to work with this gentleman and feels like he can get that attitude change. So I would be inclined to have a suspension, and if we could follow that up with, I don't know entirely what probation is, but to have some sort of report back to ensure that the proof that the restitution was made, and that some sort of report in 30 days, 60 days, whatever you feel. I don't know.
But we first have to have a motion as to whether there's been a violation or not. And
Well,
then
I
we
would
can
be
get-
glad to move that there was a violation regarding the overcharging. So in other words, the taxi cab driver, Mr. Masood, did violate. We've had enough information to prove that he violated Metro Code 6.72.5, let's say 250A.
All right, there's a motion on the, and that's based upon the affidavit and the evidence presented today, right?
Yes, sir, including the commentary from his supervisor.
All right, there's a motion on the table. Is there a second? Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Now we go into a motion and discussion about what sanctions should to be imposed. And we've heard recommendation or suggestion about revocation, and we've heard some suggestion about a suspension followed by probation with a return back to give us some proof of restitution and maybe an attitude change.
Yes, sir.
I'm just going to ask one more time, Mr. Masood. Are you willing to maybe change your statement and go through this period of suspension with Mr. Trimble to change these behaviors, or do you contend that these things did not happen?
No, I change.
Mr. Masood, do you want to say something before we start deliberating on what sanctions to impose?
No, thank you.
Do you understand, though, that there has been the finding of a violation against you today for overcharging Miss Green?
Yes.
And you have nothing further to add today?
No.
Okay.
And is it now your testimony that this did happen?
Was me.
At first you said you didn't do this, and now you're saying you will change your behavior. So can you
No,
clarify? Can you
no, I
clarify
say
what you
I-
mean?
You say you can change what you did. I say yeah. Like I do what my supervisor he told me. I don't understand what you say.
You don't understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I say you tell me you can make like a decision what you tell me supervisor. I go through what you tell me.
I'm trying to determine if I should vote to suspend or revoke your license. And part of the reason I am leaning towards revoking it is because you have, through this entire time, said you didn't do any of these things, which tells me that you may do them again, which I don't want.
No, I don't make it again.
So I'm asking you, are you now saying that these events did occur?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Contrition is appreciated sometimes.
And can you tell me why you've changed your mind on that?
Because I feel I do something wrong.
But you didn't, when you came here, feel like you did something wrong?
I feel before when I received letter, I feel what happened.
Okay. I don't like being lied to, but I appreciate the willingness to change.
You still feel the same, Mr. Trimble. You still are
Willing,
your
yes.
request remains the same. You think you can get him?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I've got everybody that sat in Mr. Rooker's chair before his tenure can testify that I have a 99% success ratio. Maybe that's extreme. That might be exaggerated, but I can turn this failure into success. And before this all transpired out of, a result of their frustration in this business, and that's how every company across the board, and many, many, many drivers, this was out of this gentleman's character. as I say, and I wouldn't be dishonest at all with you guys, you know that. No other complaints before this time. And personality-wise, and you know, I can make the changes needed to not have any more problems with this drive.
Mr. Masood, would you be willing to write a personal apology or contribute to the apology that Mr. Trimble is going to be sending to this woman?
Yes, the answer to that, yes.
With that, I would make a motion to suspend taxi cab driver Hussein Masad for 30 days for violations of Metro Code 6.72.250A.
Second.
Mr. Chairman, could I propose an amendment?
Yeah, I was going to open it for discussion. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. That we require attendance at a anger management course, which I think we've done in the past.
And can we require proof of restitution and the letter to the?
Yes, you can.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
I would like to add that
We
to
can
the
actually
motion.
redocket it for one of the meetings down the road.
You can.
Mr. Trimble, how long will you think you'll need in order to have the letter of apology, the restitution, and an anger management class proof of that done? 2 months?
A lot less than 30 days. I mean, well, not a lot less, but I mean, I can do that in less than 30 days. That's, I feel 30 days is gracious. I appreciate it. And the only thing that might not be accomplished in that time, and it might be, you know, is the anger management class. I don't feel it had anything to do with anger, but you know, researching where to go and what kind of class to get in and stuff like that, you know, we can get that done, you know.
And we can help facilitate that and arrange that. Can I make a suggestion that not only suspension, but a period of time of probation? So that if this occurs again, that we can bring him before you and you can do
Absolutely.
what you seem appropriate at that time.
I'll amend my motion for 90 days probation.
I would add, I know that in the past you have sent people to anger management, but I'm not sure that you actually have that authority because it says you can put somebody on probation, suspension, or revocation. It doesn't mention additional training unless TD has some knowledge, which he very well may.
We have done it in the past as a condition of probation,
Yeah,
and I guess they could stipulate to it.
If he agrees to it, certainly.
The other thing I'd like to add is I believe the restitution should be $90 at 125 minus 35.
That's fair.
Mr. Masad, as a condition of probation, are you agreeable to attend an anger management course?
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Do I need to restate the whole motion?
Might be good.
I'm not sure we got a second.
Okay. Y'all help me out here. I'd like to make a motion. Based on the evidence provided that taxi cab driver Hussein F. Masood violated Metro Code 6.72.250A, and this commission recommends a 30-day suspension, 90-day probation, anger management course, and proof of restitution in the amount of $90, an apology letter by the August 2025 commission meeting. How'd I do?
Is there a second? All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Ms. Masood, do you understand where you stand today, right? You're suspended for 30 days, you're on probation for 90 days, and you have to make restitution to Ms. Green. You have to at least be enrolled in and attending an anger management class by August 25th. All right. Mr. Trimble, thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
I think he's lucky that you showed up for him today.
Agreed.
Yes. Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
So I have a question about the second alleged violation, which was not put into that original notice.
Right.
But in defense of our NDOT enforcers, I wonder if there does need to be some review of that violation.
Well, we can't rule on it or anything,
No,
but
but
we
I
can
mean-
certainly thank everybody for being here today.
Thank you,
Right.
gentlemen.
Thank you.
TD.
And I can speak, this all came in a short succession of time. If you look at the timeframes on this was a 2-3 week period where we heard about this gentleman too many times. I assumed that they could handle their complaint against them by a citation.
Okay. Just wanted to acknowledge that there was something else that
Sure.
happened in our, we
No,
had.
what they
Thank you.
couldn't, they can't pull
Because,
them over.
and
So and
Yeah.
just to add, once again, we work really, really well with our companies. We have struggles with our drivers at times, and I know they're frustrated, and I know, but frustration does not give them the authority. TD and I come in, work all the time, but when we come in on Mondays, generally, we have taxi complaints, at least 5 to 10 taxi complaints from tourists of overcharging. And in the complaints, most of them read, this is horrible for Nashville, it's horrible for, tourism, it's horrible for whatever. So, we're trying desperately to get this under control. The flat fee from the airport to downtown, the airport to West End, the airport to Opryland has been taken now, and if you're downtown late at night on the weekend, these drivers are saying it's a flat fee from here to wherever. It doesn't matter. And people say, well, it was a flat fee from the airport, so it's, it's a flat fee going wherever they're going. So we're working really hard with the companies. We're going to be coming with you with some rule changes. We do think it's going to be a good idea to have the fares on the side of the vans and things like that.
Yeah.
I think there's some interest in that with 6 of our 10 companies. So we're looking into that right as we speak and coming to you. So at least people know out on the side of the vehicle that that you have to run their meter.
It's like the simplest
And
way to do
it is a huge problem, and we're doing everything we can. I say that to say you're going to start seeing cab drivers in front of you.
Thank you.
all right, Director Worker, we're on to the Pedicab driver Jake Stewart for alleged violation Metro Code 675-210 and 675-280.
Yes, sir. We've already kind of discussed this in the public comment period, so no need to really go over. Our recommendation would be to defer until after the criminal case has concluded. I think you've heard argument today that they would like for him to be able to operate during that time until such time as that happens. I will say of this driver, I know him. I'm not defending his actions, but I will say there is huge frustration amongst the industry and us as well of this rogue pedicab that's out there doing things that he's not supposed to be doing. We have had numerous reports of him using bear spray. I don't even know what that is, but whatever it is. Numerous reports of him spraying drivers, numerous reports of him just unsafe driving. Metropolitan Police Department has written him many citations. Our enforcement officers have written him many citations. The bike force of the MPD has pulled him over many times. He has made the statement, I'm not stopping and I don't care what y'all do. So he is a problem, and I think this particular situation may have been some protection of another driver maybe involved. Then I think it just got heated. As we recommend a deferral, this driver's never had a problem. He does a good job. He generally has not been an issue. He doesn't have any complaints. He doesn't have any citations. He doesn't any of those things. So to say that, I think it was a heated confrontation. Like I said, the only thing that really bothers me is that he had a marijuana on him. So to say that, if the commission would like to, allow him to operate until the criminal charges, I don't think we would have any objection to that.
If I could just say, I don't know if this is proper. Oh, Chair, it's okay if I can supplement my public statement.
Sure. Oh, yes. I'm reading the warrants. Why I was a little slow there, but go ahead.
Your Honor, geez, I'm going to go back to
Can we, hold on one second. We also, Chair, have a witness in the audience. One of our other enforcement officers is here, who I believe actually saw the incident happen and actually issued a citation. And so the commission may want to hear some of her testimony as well.
A citation to
Mr.
Stewart?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And I just want to make sure the record's clear here. Lewis Lawson is the other person you have had concerns about that you've mentioned, who's running around with bear mace and...
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. He's been several times stopped by the police. He does not have a permit. He is a problem to the industry. TD?
Enforcement wrote him a citation last evening, in fact.
Okay. And then in this warrant... yes, in the Metropolitan Police Department warrant, in the affidavit, it indicates that Mr. Stewart had bear mace. And I'm just reading out what it is. I probably not a good time to try the case here today, because we may be doing that months from now. But seems like everybody's packing bear mace. What did you want to add today?
Sure. So I would note just a few things. What will, I guess, come out if this goes to a jury trial, which I don't expect it to, but that, yes, Mr. Stewart did have bear mace, but unlike Mr. Lawson, he never used bear mace. It was kind of, and it was only purchased because Mr. Lawson has been using bear mace as a weapon against Mr. Stewart, against other bike riders, and then also bike customers. So they have been sprayed with bear mace. In fact, Mr. Stewart was sprayed by bear mace by Mr. Lawson while he already had customers on his bike, and thus not only did Mr. Stewart, am I saying this correctly? Okay. Mr. Stewart was injured. He had a brand new tattoo, and so the bear mace got into the tattoo and has exemplified or has elongated the recovery period on that with blistering and an infection. But also his customers were sprayed with the bear spray as well during that incident. And then, as noted by Mr. Rooker, that Mr. Lawson has been spraying other drivers all over town as well. The thing that I would also like to supplement is that Mr. Stewart is a father. He has one child. So because this is his only source of income, this is what he does for a living, we would be asking for a probationary period while this criminal situation is ongoing. And we will try to, obviously, Mr. Stewart would like this to be finished as soon as possible as well. So we will be pushing this as fast as we can through the criminal justice system, but we do have, docket situations.
Is that Mr. Stewart right there?
Mr. Stewart, yes.
Okay, so you are present here. All right. Mr. Rooker, it seems, and is your client and you, I assume what you're saying is that you're agreeable to deferring the disciplinary matter here today till completion of the criminal case up in either General Sessions Court or Criminal Court?
Yes,
Okay.
we would be agreeable to that, but specifically if he was able to be on probation during that period.
So you're not agreeable if his permit is revoked today or he's suspended pending the outcome of the criminal case?
Well, I would have to discuss that particular situation with him. We've discussed deferment with a probationary period during that deferment.
And Chair, let me point out that my emergency power only allows for a 30-day suspension. So what you do today from here on, we have to have some kind of action, because if we don't, the suspension will end. If no action's taken, then he's allowed to go back and drive.
You have suspended him
Yes,
right
sir.
now?
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
As of what date has he been suspended?
TD's gonna have to get that
Always asking questions. Oh,
We can't put somebody on probation until there's been a finding of disciplinary violation. So
Thank you.
the question now is going to be for us as to whether the suspension is extended or is there, I don't know that there's anything else that.
Well, it was my understanding, because I did reach out prior, that probation was an appropriate position in between until disposition.
You'll have to add, that's illegal, we'll ask legal to look that up for us.
Question whether
Yes.
emergency suspension constitutes something that could trigger probation.
Oh, I don't know.
But your concern was we as
Yeah,
a
'cause-
commission hadn't taken action.
And if the commission is worried about the marijuana usage, then my client would be very willing to take drug tests throughout the probationary period to show that he is not using during that probationary period, similar to a criminal probation.
You read this?
Mr. Chairman?
And additionally,
can I
the
ask-
other thing that I would note about the simple possession charge is that the blunt itself was sealed, not opened, not used. It was just in his pocket, which, so I do think that similar to having like a can of beer unopened in your car can get you into initial trouble. It's not necessarily going to convict you of a DUI or an open container law because it was sealed and closed, similar in this similar situation as well.
Commissioner Rogers, you had a question?
Well, yeah, I think you said this. We would have to reach a decision about disciplinary action before we could put him on probation. Is that a correct statement?
Yeah, unless somebody corrects me at the end of the table there, I don't see how you can be on probation until there's been a finding of a violation.
And
I think all we have authority to do right now is extend Director Rooker's or put him on the suspending pending the outcome.
Okay, and.
Or not.
Yeah, I'd really, this is a pretty complicated case. You know, there are two sides, obviously, especially considering the behavior we've heard about of the other participant in this, especially if he's operating illegally. Is it appropriate to end the suspension and defer the disciplinary hearing till after the criminal charges are disposed of?
We can do that.
Okay, can I make that motion?
1 second, I have a question of all the commissioners. Does anyone want to hear from any witnesses who were at the scene?
I think it would be appropriate to hear from the officer
Okay.
who's here.
Director Rooker, did you say one of the police officer, or one of your
One of our NDOT
TLC
officers, Tamika
Okay.
Smith, she witnessed I think this incident. We'll ask her to come up.
I was present as well, a manager that worked with Jake, out there on the streets every day.
Why don't you talk to your attorney or to Mr. Stewart's attorney and the decision can be made. Please remember that what you say here may be used against you or may be used upstairs during the hearings on this matter, so.
Sorry, I don't know where to go, what to do.
Why don't you have a seat over to your
That's not
left
great.
for just a
Talk to your
second?
lawyer.
All right. Before we get started, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And would you please state who you are and where you work and what relevant testimony you can give to us today?
My name is Tamika Smith. I am a Compliance Inspector 3 overnight supervisor for the Nashville Department of Transportation. It's green.
Speak up, okay?
On the night in question, I was radio called. It was referred to as the pink pedal cart. That's kind of how they tell us about the illegal taxi person. Just a little bit of pre-story. He did bear mace Mr. Stewart before, and when I got there, what it was explained to me is that he didn't actually spray Mr. Lawson. They said they kind of ran around a car or something, but the police never said.
This is what was told to you? You didn't
by
actually
the police officer and
Okay.
Mr. Lawson both said that Mr. Stewart didn't spray him. And I want to say maybe a week or two before, Mr. Lawson directly sprayed Mr. Stewart and did not get arrested.
Did you observe that?
I didn't observe it, but the officers explained it to me later. Like, the pink pedal car got away again. So, like, he just keeps doing stuff, and he's not just somewhat doing stuff. He's driving on the sidewalk. He's recklessly driving. I've seen him on 2 wheels. I've seen him do like almost a donut in the street. So in my 3 years of working here, I've never once written a pedal cart citation until I had to start writing an illegal one. And I've never written one to someone permitted until I had to write one to Mr. Stewart, because he was being arrested. But outside of that, Mr. Stewart is always nice. They're always all following the rules. Like, those are not the people that we're worried about. They don't have the same issues we have out of taxis and stuff. And it was really kind of heartbreaking, because I know that Mr. Stewart was really kind of fed up after being actually bear sprayed. Bear spray is a lot stronger, and it's in like a big can with a trigger on it for bears, not like regular mace. So to actually be bear sprayed more than once with people on your thing, I can understand how he was kind of fed up. And since the other person is illegal, our hands are tied. We can't stop anybody as compliance officers, and we were stopping the illegal Lawson guy so much that the officers were kind of just tired of doing it, because if we could get his vehicle impounded, he was going back down and picking it up the same night back on the same street. So, and he's just harassing the pedal cart guys. They pull up and stop on 5th Avenue. He would just pull up and do anything, and it's just like there's not a lot we can do to him, and it wasn't a lot the police could really do, and they were kind of tired of like repeatedly trying to give him tickets, and he was just back on the street the same day, because it's a $50 ticket to him that he may or may not pay. And the persons or people that are really being hurt and their pockets are being hurt are the people that are permitted through us, that we're supposed to be out there protecting or taking care of.
Officer Smith, I understand a lot of the information you're giving us about Mr. Lawson, but could you please circle back to on June 21st, 2025, when you arrived at
That
the
was
scene?
the only information that the officers provided, that
Well,
he didn't
what did you
do
actually
anything.
see at the scene when you got there that
Mr.
caused you to write a
Stewart was
citation?
he was in handcuffs at that time, and they were about to put him in the car. But other than that, I wasn't there when he actually was doing anything. I was called to the scene to write the Metro citations for both of the parties, since they were both permitted through, well, one's permitted through the Transportation Licensing Commission.
So you wrote a citation to Mr. Lawson and to Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
And what was the citation, the nature of the citation?
For Mr. Stewart, I wrote code of conduct, basically because he was being arrested. He has to abide by the state federal laws.
Mm-hmm.
And then for Mr. Lawson, I'm sure it was the lack of permit or not having a permit. And I've given him that several times.
When will those be heard?
I believe his is on July the 22nd for that particular ticket. Do you have copies?
I don't know.
Yes, it's the
Or
22nd.
They're in the
It's in the packet.
They're in the packet. Sorry. Maybe you may be looking at it.
This is the Metro Police.
No, that's a citation, yeah.
But that's your whole citation?
Yeah, because this is the police department's warrant affidavit.
The blue one is the
Yeah, the
citation
blue
that I
one's
wrote.
the citation she wrote.
Sorry. And 4th Avenue and where?
This would have been right by the Symphony Center, so a little bit past in Sobro, like right past Broadway.
Number in 4th?
Between
Yeah,
Demumbrian and Broadway on 4th.
Mm-hmm.
If I could ask a question, apparently Mr. Lawson has been cited a lot?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So hopefully
More
if it
than
comes
2 or
before you-
3, or?
Yeah, I'll take that in, because it's written way more than 2 or 3. It's
Okay.
probably 5 or 6 a week.
A
And
week?
also has,
5 or 6 a week?
He's illegal, so every time we see him and he's driving, he can't have his pedal cart on the road. He can't have passengers. He can't drive a pedal cart in Nashville streets. And he's trying to imply that, I guess, his means of transportation, but that's not an option as a means of transportation when you're constantly downtown. Because, I mean, you're implying he's a pedal cart.
Mm-hmm.
And we see him all the time with passengers and stuff, so it's not just a means of transportation.
I just want to remind everybody that we're not deciding disciplinary action today
Right.
about Mr. Stewart or not. We're deciding what to do with this permit while this matter is deferred.
one more,
Yes,
just
sir.
one quick thing. We, as to the illegal pedal cab, we are waiting for convictions on his citations, and we will seek an injunction in circuit court and have him appear before a circuit court judge, hopefully to be held in contempt.
Yeah, he could be contempt of court.
Yes, so that's the plan going forward. If he's held in contempt of court, he can be jailed.
Do we know when that's going to happen?
No, we do not at this time, but we're waiting for convictions on some of these citations. Yes, sir.
I will say it's not our first crack at this process either. We have been successful with Off the Wagon, with taking a company off the streets that shouldn't be operating.
I think my motion was to end the suspension and defer any disciplinary action until after the criminal charges are adjudicated. I think that was my motion. Oh.
It ends in 30 days, but, hold on. 60, sorry. You need to end it.
So we could end it today, though.
You can end it today, and we would be fine with that.
You don't need
So,
to.
I think, so we do have a witness who was there, I think, right after the incident occurred too, but not during the incident. So if y'all, and she's the manager, but she's also been involved in all of the instances since Mr. Lawson has shown up in Nashville. So the bear sprays of other people, of Mr. Stewart, of passengers.
I think we've
So
got
we
a
asked-
full
We have a
picture of
motion
Mr.
on the
Lawson,
floor.
okay?
No, we don't.
Motion's on the floor.
I'll second.
All right.
I move the question.
And just to clarify, this is to end the suspension and not take any further action until after the.
We will put him back on the agenda when we get, I'll get with Aaron, and when we get, something with the case.
I'll stay in touch with Mr. Rooker about the scheduling of the case. I do expect it to be scheduled for late August or September at this point in time for the initial trial.
Thank you. But just for the purposes of this motion, I want to be very clear that we are saying that Mr. Stewart is going to be back on, we are allowing him to be back on the streets for this. Okay.
Yes.
Yep. So do we
And
need
we
to
will bring him back before you for
Yep.
a disciplinary hearing based upon the evidence that happens in court.
I mean, I just hope we get Mr. Lawson. Do we need a second on that motion?
We have a
Is there a
second.
sec-
And he's trying to call the question on his own motion. He can't.
I'm not sure
I'll call for the question.
Your chairperson's dropping the ball here a little bit, but I did want to get the full discussion done. Okay, there's a motion, a second, and is all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, motion carries.
Thank you all.
You're welcome. Can we take a 5-minute break? Thank you.
Do we have a visual image?
I mean,
We're on. All right, we're back on the TV and the record and everything else. All right, Director Rooker, we got an OPVH review of Nashville Bronco Tour application and age waiver request.
Yes, sir. This is, I think the commission is familiar with renewal Nashville Bronco Tour application. He's applying for an OPVH, and he has to be an age. The vehicle's so old, it has to be a waiver from the commission for him to operate this vehicle as an OPVH. It's not vintage, it's not classic, it's not really unique in its nature. TD, we just lost it. As y'all know, this gentleman has been before you before. He gives tours and he does sightseeing. And now he's coming before you to do OPVH. That would be point-to-point drive, no tours, no anything like that. And he would have to have a waiver from you to operate this particular vehicle as an OPVH. He would not be allowed to give tours. He would not be allowed to do all those things. He's not a sightseeing company. He would only be allowed point-to-point, transportation. I'm not sure in the OPVH rules, there's nothing that says, TD's got it up here, whether this vehicle is appropriate for that or not, we'll let the commission decide, but that's what's in front of you today.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yeah.
In the image of the vehicle, it has tours on it. Would that be struck?
It does. So that would, if you allow it, that would have to come off. The striping would have to come off. The number would have to come off. And he would only be allowed to do point-to-point transportation in this particular vehicle.
And
As you see on the screen and in your packets, it's set up. You see the back bench, and you see how the vehicle is set up in those photos.
Where is the age of the vehicle in our packet?
It's probably not in there, but we know it would require an age.
More than 15 years old.
More than 15 years old.
Okay, and that is not in dispute.
No.
I believe it's in the 1970.
1975.
Okay. And do we know the logic behind the 15-year-old or the 15-year rule?
The OPVH categories is typically your traditional livery vehicles, point-to-point, an Uber Black, a limousine, things of that nature. So similar rule in the taxi cab section. The vehicles start to get a lot of miles on them. They get a little older. I believe that was probably the legislative intent there, is to have newer vehicles driving people.
Safety of the vehicle. I mean, just to make sure you're driving people around, want to be sure the vehicle's safe.
To make sure I'm hearing correctly, you said 1975, so we're talking about a 50-year-old vehicle. Okay.
Question, can you describe what the age waiver request is?
That would be the only way that he could operate as an OPVH if you let him do it he had to have to waiver from this commission to operate that particular vehicle as an OPVH because of the age of the vehicle.
The age of the vehicle we're talking about. Okay, got it. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, would it be appropriate to ask this is Mr. Beatty. Tell us what you've got here and what your business plan is.
Do we need to have anybody? We're not swearing. We don't need to swear anybody in.
I don't think we need to swear anybody in.
Just making
it's
sure.
It's not a contested necessarily.
Sure.
If I can, Mr. Chairman and Commissioner,
state your name, please.
Commissioner Penley, if I could. My name's Jamie Holland on behalf of Mr. Beatty, and I don't know if y'all have heard or been updated, but in the last couple hours, he rebranded as Nashville Bronco. We dropped the tours about an hour and a half, 2 hours ago from our rebrand. And when we heard about the big green tractor rebrand that they went through, we've got an inspection report where just on July 16, his automobile was completely inspected, and have a report to submit to you if necessary by Performance Auto. And the reason we're here for OPVH, if you remember a couple of meetings ago, there's a cap on the ETV and couldn't do that. And I think Commissioner Claver, you made the recommendation.
Yes.
And he's thought about that and has followed it and looking to comply. And here we are. And no offense to a 50-year-old vehicle. I too am 50 years old. And like, let's not put us out to pasture just yet, just because we're 50 years old. And, you know, we would ask for your thoughtful consideration and approval. And back to your questions, Ms. Penley, if you want to ask Mr. Beatty, I tendered him to you.
Yeah, tell us what you plan to do with the shuttling of people back and forth and what that's going to look like.
Well, that's originally this what I planned on doing. That what I had been doing all of 2022 was giving.
We're not doing that anymore. We're not talking about the past anymore. We're talking about the current, where we are today, and what we're going to do in OPVH, and how we're going to move from point to point, and that's
Yes.
it.
So now I'm going to be providing just simply point-to-point transportation, just like Uber or Lyft or any of those operations. If you allow me to do that, then everything will be hunky-dory, and I'd appreciate that greatly.
Just to add a little color, when I was working on the riverfront, we saw your tours come
Yes,
down
ma'am.
there. I understand you've always been a good operator, and
Thank
you have wonderful reviews from the
Thank you.
Nashville community and
I take
the
a lot of pride in
visitors.
it.
And,
Yes, ma'am.
And so I have no objections to the application or the age waiver request.
Well, I have some questions, though, about that.
Yes, sir.
There's a reason that the age of the vehicle is set in the rules.
Absolutely.
That is to protect the public and the community.
Yes, sir.
Tell me why I should feel comfortable that I should make an exception in your case for a 50-year-old Bronco. What assures me that the community is going to be safe riding in this fairly open vehicle?
Well, it's built like a Sherman tank. I don't know if you're a Chevy man, but Ford Bronco of 1975 is as classic American vehicle as you can get, and it is solid as solid can be. It's a Sherman tank, and I've maintained it. I've never went four-wheel in it. I used to just drive it around to show off.
Well, let me
and
be a
now
little
I'm-
more specific. I'm not as worried about whether you can ram somebody else or not. My concern is, do you have airbags in the vehicle?
Airbags.
In the front of the vehicle?
I do not. There's nobody
Seat
sitting in
belts in the
front.
front?
I'm sorry?
Seat belts in the front?
Yeah, seat belts all the way around.
All right, and we're looking at it before. It's open air in the back. I assume that's where you're going to put your passengers, right?
Correct.
What assures me that they won't be thrown from the vehicle if someone else side swipes you? What are you doing to protect the passengers in the bed of the?
There's seat belts in the back, sir.
All right. Any other precautions back there?
No, other than the whole thing is welded entirely to the frame. It's not bolted on. It's welded directly to the frame underneath. And if I were to give you a walk around tour of it and have you inspect it visually and get your hands on it, you would see that it's as solid could be.
I understand it's a solid vehicle. Most of the OPVHs that we sanction are within the last 15 years. A lot of them are Cadillac Escalades. They're all covered. The passengers are covered in it.
Yes, sir.
And they have airbags, they have side bags, they have seat belts. They're extremely safe, or as safe as a vehicle, about
Yes,
as
sir.
safe as a vehicle can be. I am concerned about authorizing to be putting passengers in the bed of a Bronco that's not really designed to hold passengers. So that's why I'm asking these questions, asking these hard questions of you. It looks entertaining. I'm sure you do a great job. You bring people back and forth. But if this vehicle gets hit on the side by another large German tank, so to speak, or a Chevy, I'm afraid people could get seriously injured if it gets toppled over.
Okay. But when I was permitted in 2022, and the board. Okay, but I'm just saying.
Today, directly answer his question about safety.
So the whole 6.74, the whole customized version of that. All right.
So I will say, as someone who drives a 38-year-old Italian convertible, I understand your concerns. I will also say that there's a certain amount of personal choice among people who presumably would choose to ride in that vehicle and would understand at some level the risk. I undertake that risk when I drive my car.
How many people are you anticipating putting in the back of the Bronco?
There's enough space there for 9 normal-sized rear ends. Well, he asked how many it could possibly hold capacity. I'm sorry.
What's the maximum speed you go in the Bronco?
I mean, currently, I've rarely been in a position where I'm going over 20, 25 miles an hour. It's mostly, 5 to 10 miles per hour.
So you're not going to be doing tours. We've made that clear. This is your forward-facing new idea. You're going to be transporting people from one place to another in this open air back. So are you anticipating it would be like from, I guess, who are the people what's your idea of what that's going to look like? I'm just curious about, you're not taking people to the airport. That's not what this would be.
Not getting on the highway. I'm assuming I'm going to be working with lots of the concierges that I'm very familiar with, and have everybody needs, transportation from, midtown to downtown or vice versa, and I'm going to be their guy.
Is there any alcohol served?
Absolutely not.
Is there BYOB?
No, I don't allow that at all.
Thank you.
You gonna be the driver?
Yes, sir.
This was your idea, Annie.
It was.
Yeah, so
All right. I move to approve the application for Nashville Bronco Tours.
I think they said they changed their name.
Oh, sorry. Excuse me.
Nashville Bronco.
What is the new name of the company? Nashville Bronco. Just Nashville Bronco.
Rebranding in progress.
I move to approve the OPVH permit for Nashville Bronco. And I would like to see pictures of the rebranding.
And are you waiving?
And I would also move to waive the age requirement of the vehicle.
On the basis of being a classic car?
On the basis of being, thank you, on the basis of being a classic car, manufactured 2000 or earlier.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Well, before we
I'm
take
sorry.
a vote, sorry.
Yep, discussion, open for discussion.
I just, as we are setting a precedent here as an idea of ways to work with folks and not expand the ATV licensing category, please do not use this as a tour vehicle, even though we've given you this OPVH. If we get word that that's happening, there will be no, from me at least, if is it seen as an end run around the existing licensing scheme, I think I know that I would not feel the same.
I could not have made that point more clear. Okay. I would not be here if I didn't think.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. And to be clear, that. Thank you for saying that. I agree with that, and I don't want this to be a loophole, but I think that, this, Mr. Beatty has proven that he will follow these rules, and I think he's a good steward of Nashville, and he should be allowed to operate under our purview, and so that's why I'm making this motion.
The only point of clarification I'll make is if touring is occurring, if sightseeing, live narration is occurring, if the entertainment is on the vehicle, the correct category is entertainment transportation. If it is point A to point B, prearranged transportation without entertainment, then it can be OPVH.
And also, TD, correct me if I'm wrong, have to have a private place to drop off. Can he drop off on a right of way?
We don't have that rule in OPVH.
Okay, that's all I needed to clarify. Thank you.
That was all for me. I'm in favor, so.
Any further discussion?
I just echo Commissioner Penley, please don't make us regret this.
All right, motion's on the table, it's been second. All in favor of approving the application and the waiver of age for Nashville Bronco, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. I'd also encourage that you make sure everybody fastens their seatbelts. Yes, sir. Okay, Mr. Rooker, Director Rooker.
Mr. Rooker's fine, Chair.
No, we're on the record still.
Ricky's fine. You don't even have to be that formal.
Wrecker and Towing Services?
Yes, sir. We have a public hearing on a rule change. This rule change is not anything that we are asking for. This is to abide in a new state law where storage, you had the storage fee for record companies was $55. The Motion Act this past year that was passed lowers it to $40, and we can't charge any more than the Tennessee Highway Patrol does by statute in storage fees. So this is a public hearing to change this rule to abide with state law.
To reduce the fee.
To reduce the fee, yes, sir.
And it's fees that we permit our
Currently.
licensee to charge, because we don't charge the fees directly.
That is correct.
I'm sorry.
Just going to open the public hearing.
Okay, go ahead.
You sure?
Yep.
Okay. All right, we're going to open up the public hearing now regarding the MTLC Rules and Procedures, Section 326D, regarding wrecker and towing storage fees. Mr. Weaver, you can't be opposing this, are you?
Actually, well, not
Have a
exactly,
seat.
sir. Hi, hello again, James Weaver, Holland and Knight. I filed a letter. We filed a letter with the commission staff a couple of days ago, signed by 23 of the 40 emergency towing companies in town, asking for alternatively one of two things: to either delay action on this for a month to give the industry time to discuss the current maximum THP fee with THP. The Tennessee Highway Patrol, their process is a bit obtuse in terms of how you go about addressing this, and we're working on it just as fast as we can. If, however, the commission feels like it needs to take action today because perhaps its lawyers tells it that it has to, then we would request that as opposed to setting the fee at the as it's been proposed at the current maximum of $40 that the THP apparently allows, we would ask that you modify your rule to the maximum that the THP will allow without an amount, and that way we won't have to come back and bother you again when we talk to the THP about how unbelievably unfair $40 is in the current economic environment. Quickly, this provision was buried up in something called the Motion Act. That was a very large, complicated piece of legislation in the last session. I'll be back here in front of you in a month or so to talk about booting and the booting provisions that were in there representing the Booting Association. I don't represent the Towing Association. There was a provision in the Motion Act that had the Towing Association caught it. I might not be taking up your time right at the moment. But in any event, it says what it says. Your lawyers are going to explain what it says. And again, the letter goes into great detail about just how unbelievably unfair a reduction is in the current environment. The storage lots are extremely expensive. The property taxes have gone up on them. Insurance has gone up on them. It costs you more than $40 a day to park your car at the airport, and you don't have all of these other requirements that come from being a storage facility. Again, we understand the state law says what the state law says. We don't believe that there would be risk to the TLC if you delayed this for a month. The towing companies may or may not have some legal liability by charging more than $40. We don't believe it would create any liability with regard to the TLC, but we certainly understand your desire to be in compliance with state law to the extent that you can be. We're not telling you not to be in compliance. We're simply asking you to give it 30 more days so that we can figure out what the process is at THP for even talking with them about their cap, and then attempting to increase the same. And but again, in the alternative, if you do feel like you act today, the letter that we filed with the commission has some language in it that we would hope everyone would be comfortable with. That would simply say your maximum fee is whatever the state maximum fee is, and then we can deal with the maximum fee at the THP level. And again, not have to come back in here and you guys listen to me yak again and again and again. Thank you for your time. Thank you guys for doing this. I know I say that every time I come up here, but I actually really mean it today.
What was the maximum fee before the legislature changed it down to $40?
$55.
It was 55?
Yes, sir. Yes.
I'm sorry, are we talking about what was our charge?
Your maximum.
Yeah, what was
Our
the THP? though?
THP's was 40.
Was 40.
Yes, sir.
I
Is
think
40.
what's new is that the state law specifies we have to mirror or go no greater than
This
what
is
THP
one
says.
sentence in a how many page long? I mean, it was one of the larger bills that moved through this session.
Mr. Weaver, would our delay of a month to give more time for the industry for you all to work with THP, would that impact your obligation of your clients to comply with the state law no matter what
No, ma'am.
we say our
No, we're at
fee
risk.
is? Okay.
The companies with the storage facilities are at risk. My point is, I don't believe that the commission or the Metropolitan government is at risk by giving a month. I'm really trying to short circuit having to come back. Not that I don't love you guys.
But if we were to go with the maximum of THP, you would not have to come back.
No, ma'am, I would not.
That's
so-
the ask. You all would be fine with that.
Yes, ma'am, we would be. I needed to ask you guys to not do it. I've asked you to not do it, but we'd be also fine if you would just change the language of what was proposed. Say whatever THP is allows as a max in this jurisdiction, that would be your max.
My
Then-
concern about not acting is we've been made aware that we have on the books a permission that we know is not in compliance currently with state
I
law.
will note that it's a little bit of, we got all these towing companies to agree on something. That's something, Mr. Rooker.
Miracle number one.
Thank you, sir.
What if we made the rule up to the THP maximum or $55, whichever is less? Does
What
that
I
make
would say
sense?
to that is that what we've asked for is up to what the maximum is, and if the maximum that the THP sets is higher than what you're comfortable with, then you can always ratchet it back down in Davidson County.
How long has it been 55? Probably a long time.
In Davidson.
In Davidson, yeah.
4 years.
3 years.
3 years, okay, because we did.
And I will tell you that we were preparing to come in and ask you for an increase to 60 based on just the CPI, if nothing else from the 55. And then TD over there, who I don't know if he's got a law degree, probably ought to have one because he okay, well, because he called and said you probably ought to read the statute, and it's like, oh, whoops. So, thank you, sir.
Is there any concern by staff about tying our storage fee to the THP maximum?
None
Y'all have
whatsoever.
any
I think that's okay. TD may see a little thing. As long as because THP's contacted us on several occasions and said, when are y'all going to change this? You're violating state law. The only thing that I see is, I don't see it as a problem to mirror it, because I think our companies would do the right thing, but it doesn't set just an amount. But I don't have any problem with you saying it mirroring the state fee. I'm good with that. TD?
The only additional context I'll add is in this process, when THP informed Director Rooker and I that we were out of compliance with the state law, I spent a considerable amount of time searching for the THP storage rates online and could not find them. So eventually had to go back and request those from THP. So that process wasn't easy insofar as finding out that we were not in compliance.
And the process for addressing them, even who to talk to, is equally obtuse. I mean, I got the maximum THP from him.
It doesn't sound like to me that THP is going to be immediately raising the rate to some amount that we'd be uncomfortable with. And I think there are times when it's appropriate to have limits, but then, as indicated, we want to have companies able to provide the service that's needed. And clearly THP, who hopefully is sensitive also to similarly sensitive as the police department, that they would, since they are a user of the towing companies, that they would not shoot themselves in the foot, hopefully, by keeping it too low or making it too high. So if it's appropriate for a motion, I would, after the hearing's closed, sorry.
Okay. And we intend to ask for 60. We don't intend to ask for any more. I'm happy for you to know that.
You know, Mr. Weaver, I find myself kind of agreeing with your recommendation, particularly since I just now read 5531-404, which doesn't set a specific amount. It says, thou shalt not charge any higher than the maximum fee that has been approved by Tennessee Highway Patrol. And if our regulations, rules, whatever, mirrored that, I think we'd be in compliance, whether they go up to 60 or go, who knows, it even goes down somehow.
Metro agreeing with the state, that would be miracle number
You know, we should get credit
one
for that.
more, and I'm going to be
Chair, may I?
sainthood.
Yes.
May I just, so the Motion Act that was passed in 2024 would be that provision. The Motion Act that was passed in 2025, or amended in 2025, is actually TCA Section 5531-207.
Ah.
That's the current provision, but the language that you just read
Yeah.
from the previous TCA section is the same. But the
Okay.
language above it is not. So I just want to make sure we're referencing the correct statute in the rule, but the language about the fee charged at a higher rate than the maximum fee that has been approved by the Tennessee Highway Patrol District is the same in the amended Motion Act.
And that's 5531-207.
207.
Okay.
We had a Motion Act of 24, and we had a Motion Act of 25.
We did.
We're hoping that's the last one.
All right. Does anybody else here want to speak in the public hearing?
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. All right, I'm going to close the here we go. Sorry. Come on up.
Hello, how are y'all today?
All right, introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are.
Yes, sir. Michael Martin with Martin's Record Service.
Yeah.
Martin's Record Service, Mike's Custom Towing. Thank y'all for your time today. Real quick, it's going to be a big loss of revenue for us. We're already struggling. We're already struggling with the new law that came out where we have to send the extra letters out. It's created more financial difficulty on us. It's going to take away from our finances. If anything, if y'all could consider the lien holder processing fee right now is at $75. If we're going to be taking something away from us, if we could add in somewhere else, maybe move that to $100 to help us. Well, we're going to be losing a little bit here until we can get this figured out, and then we can maybe revisit that or something. But $25 on every vehicle comes to a lot. Most of them there for a day or two, some of them $50. I mean, that's going to be a lot of money. That's already, struggling economy. The taxes just went up here in Davidson County, you know, I mean, it's hard on us here, and, you know, anything y'all can do, we would appreciate it. And thank you for your time.
You're welcome. Mr. Martin, thank you for your input on that and the perspective from an owner of a record company. I would, before we can make any changes like that, there actually has to be notice put out and then a public hearing, just like you saw just now. If you in the industry has some suggestions, I would recommend bringing them to Director Rooker, okay?
Yes, sir.
And then consideration can be given as to whether it's something that we want to put on our agenda.
I appreciate
But I do understand that you're losing $15 a day. If I understand correctly, you're losing $15 a day per vehicle stored at your lot.
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that adds up.
That's about a third, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, a little less than a third. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, anybody else? Once, twice, 3 times. Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing. And is there any further discussion by members of the commission? Is there a motion by anybody? We got to have a motion.
Well, I would make the motion that we change our Metro Transportation Licensing Commission rule with respect to storage fees to that it automatically adjusts to mirror the maximum amount of any changes in the rates approved by the Tennessee Highway Patrol for the Nashville districts in accordance with TCA 5531-207.
Second.
All right, before we vote on it, we are going to need someone to write up a specific language modification to the rule. We've got a motion that certainly has the spirit and the intent of it. TD, can you, or Director Rooker, somebody, or Metro Legal even, just draft that up and make sure we see it at the next meeting?
Yes, sir, we can do that.
Okay.
And my thought process would be in our set of rules to place the current fee online for the public to see. And then add some extra language at the bottom of the rule, automatically adjust to the highest fee acceptable by THP.
Subject to change based upon THP, yeah, okay.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
All right, there's been a motion, there's been a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Director Rooker, we are now in new application for non-consent towing by Affordable Towing.
Yes, sir. This Mr. Mitchell informed me at the beginning of the meeting that he would like to withdraw this application. So the application being withdrawn, there's really nothing for the commission to have to act on.
Oh, come on, I really like the name of Affordable Towing. Sheesh. All right, so we'll just strike that. Yes, sir. All right. Now we move on to shared urban mobility devices.
This would be the Shared Urban Mobile Device Managers section. TD, it's all yours.
As promised, we have gone through the RFQ. Evaluation committee met. We had 2 responses to that RFQ, and I think the noticed intent to award that's in your packet showed we had a clear consensus winner among the group. So with your blessing on that decision today with a motion, we can move into contract negotiations to bring docked bike share system into the city.
All right, so what are you needing from us today?
Just a motion to approve the intent to award to Bicycle Transit Systems.
A motion for the intent to award. Okay.
Now, the intent to award is all contingent upon successful contract negotiations, which are still forthcoming.
All right.
I'll make a motion that we approve the, whatever he said. Intent to award to allow them to negotiate, which they've done already for months and months, but I won't get into that.
Oh.
I would like to ask one rhetorical question, which I think y'all need to consider as you're negotiating, is does the O'Connell administration support the sale of private advertising on public right-of-way? I'm not asking to get an answer. And the point commissioners, I'm asking is because this whole proposal depends upon their sale of advertising to pay for expansion of the system.
It absolutely does.
Interesting. All right, so there's a motion on the table for action on the intent to award for RFQ 396471 docketed bike share mobility systems. There's been a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Now we're on to the public hearing regarding the MTLC Rules and Procedures, Section 903A. Director Worker?
Yes, sir. This will allow us, in changing this rule, to add seated scooters to the fleet of, I believe, Lime. I think we had a presentation at the last meeting. Y'all actually got to see a seated scooter. And so this rule would allow them to provide seated scooters along with the vehicles that they offer today. The number would not go up, that coming next on the agenda, but at their request. But this is just allowing for the scooter that you saw last meeting to operate in Nashville.
So last meeting, we had the presentation, then we gave notice of it, now we're going to our public hearing, and then we'll have some discussions and vote on whether they can be approved or not.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm going to go and open up the public hearing regarding the rule change for 903A.
I didn't plan to say anything, but
Well, introduce yourself first and who you are again. We saw you last time with the scooter, so.
Lily Krause, Senior Manager, Government Relations for Lime. We're really excited about the prospect of bringing our newest vehicle line to Nashville. We see a lot of positive momentum in the city with especially seated options. We have seen tremendous growth on our bike fleet, and we believe that being allowed to have our other seated options will be beneficial to everyone who uses micromobility as an alternative transportation option for people who have accessibility issues. Again, we've seen it skewing older and towards more women, so we're excited to widen our customer base with the introduction of these vehicles. And I'm happy to answer any additional questions you have on the vehicles themselves.
Any commissioners have questions?
Are they fun to ride?
They're great. I think we did a demo where we rode them for an hour and 20 minutes because they were so fun to ride.
Yeah, I tried it out, and it really is significantly different than those stand-up scooters. I think it'll appeal to a different demographic because you're much more stable, or at least you feel more stable on those. Center of gravity is lower and that kind of thing. Wheels are larger than your other scooters.
I do have some. Yes, go ahead. No.
And remind me, are they subject to the same rules and regulations as bicycles for use on roadways?
Yes.
Basically, yes. I'm not sure. I mean, you mean in our rules or in law? Or other laws. I mean, there's state law that in our rules really
Will they
speak to
have
that.
the disclaimer, do not ride on the sidewalk?
Oh, yes. Yeah, same as any other scooter.
Commissioner Rogers, what about riding on greenways?
You really want to get into that today?
Well, scooters and greenways were a no-no for a long time. This, not to say it's a bicycle, but it sometimes looks closer to an e-bike than it does to a scooter.
It is, in a way. And this really just puts us in line with state law for the most part, because state law says that all electric scooters are not motorized vehicles. So if there's any law or rule banning motorized vehicles, these are not included. And the state law also says nothing about whether you stand or sit. So these are already allowed under state law. In fact, the state law says that they're motorized vehicles only if you're driving intoxicated.
TD.
They added that if you look at the state statute, which happens to be 55.8.101, paragraph 21. somebody brought it up in the General Assembly, I think on the committee or on the floor, and said, can you be ticketed for driving drunk on one of these? So they added it to the statute.
TD comment.
I think what we found in our rules that our definition of a scooter was more restrictive than the state law. So the sentence in 903A3 says an electric scooter shall have a footboard for the user to stand on and no seat. We would recommend removing and no and adding the words or a seat to allow for a seated scooter option. There's a few lines we're looking to clean up in this rule as well. Old language that said issued under this pilot program. We're obviously no longer piloting this program. It is a program that is under contract. So removing that old language as well as part of the recommendation on this.
Thank you. You had some
Okay.
questions.
Well, my other question is, with the gliders, are they new licenses, new permits, or are they gonna be subbed in for existing scooters within like your, what's the request on that front? Is
This
that next?
particular rule change would give no additional fleet.
Okay.
There is an agenda item next where they might ask you for that.
That's what I mean.
But the rule change is going to classify them as a scooter.
As a scooter.
That's
And
correct,
so they're
because
just
they-
part of the original fleet.
They could be a scooter. The glider is currently, by your rules, not allowed to operate. This would allow for it to operate as a scooter. It cannot be an e-bike by state law because it doesn't have pedals.
Then it pedals, yeah.
But it does not raise the number in the fleet.
Right. We're just
changing the
expanding
definition.
We're expanding the
expanding the
definition.
definition to get gliders under scooter. We're gliding under the scooters.
We're gliding under the scooter.
Scooting and gliding.
Yeah, yeah, that's good song. Good name. Scooter and glide. All right, does anybody else want to speak during the public hearing? All right, seeing no hands or anything, I'm going to close the public hearing now. Leave it open for discussion and/or motion.
I'll make a motion we approve the legal change as written. I have to read the whole thing.
Second.
And
Second.
That's particularly, if I understand correctly, that is section 903A, correct?
Yes. Correct.
Yes, okay. All right, there's been a motion, a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Now, we're now down to the next item, Director Rooker, request by Lime for 50 scooter fleet increase pursuant to the MTLC Rules and Procedures, section 913.
Yes, sir. This request is from Lime to increase their fleet by 50 scooters. NDOT would not recommend that at this time. The downtown core is saturated with these vehicles. If they were going to try to do that, we would definitely not want them in the downtown area. If the commission agreed to an additional fleet, we would ask that it be outside of the downtown core. And but we don't need any more scooters or any kind of other kind of device, so in downtown Nashville at this time. That's NDOT's recommendation.
I would point out that the streets of downtown are crowded with cars and trucks and taxis, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes, sir, I understand.
Scooters take up a very small space on the public roads. We now have, I don't know how, do you know how many corrals we now have? Brent's been out there building corrals, right?
Yeah.
Space for over 1,500 scooters and corrals downtown.
Right, but how many corrals for the scooters?
Maybe
It was
150?
294?
Ooh, 294 corrals?
Is that right?
Or,
what?
Yeah.
But the number of being actually utilized, I would say the percentage from someone who is downtown and sees it.
In all fairness to that, the culture's changing a little bit as people locate these. I actually witnessed, and pulled over and thanked them. I actually witnessed some folks going in and pushing them in and backing them in and actually putting them in there nice and pretty and everything.
Well, I've also witnessed people replacing the batteries, and I've had to ask them to move the vehicle into the corral.
Sure. It's
let
not
them.
all done, but it's starting to. We're starting to see changes a little bit.
Yeah. The corrals haven't actually been there all that long, have they, TD?
Just within the last year, they were added to downtown, and we'd like to see that continue to proliferate out to Germantown, Sobro, into the Gulch and Midtown.
And I think the companies are continuing to have discussions with the fine folks at Downtown Partnership about it, for what it's worth. And perhaps, I would argue that the people who ride on bike share are higher quality than the ones that ride scooters.
I'd like to make a motion to deny the request by Lime for 50 scooter fleet increase pursuant to MTLC Rules and Procedures, Section 913.
Second.
Can I ask a question of the staff? And again, this is a rhetorical question. Does the O'Connell administration support expansion of micromobility in Nashville?
I would not be able to answer that question at this time.
That's a rhetorical question which you should pass to your boss.
Thank you, sir.
Well, just while we're in discussion time, the NDOT recommendation was that this wasn't consistent with the Connect Nashville
Downtown
Connect. So that would be the reason why I seconded the motion to deny it at this time, at least.
What's in the Downtown Connect study that would deal with this issue? I bet I haven't read it and don't intend to.
Not being a subject matter expert on Connect Downtown, I'll defer to TD.
It's a 84-page final document. I can pull it up if we want to scroll to that section, but
I do want to ask a question before we vote on this.
Yeah.
Why are you asking for 50 more scooters?
That's what we're allowed to ask for in the TLC rules because of our utilization. We have, TD can verify that our utilization has been over 2.5 trips per vehicle per day, which is one of the highest fleet growth, like the highest thresholds that we see in the U.S. Many cities are usually under 2 for requesting fleet, so it's like indicates a extremely high ridership, not only on scooters but on our bikes as well. We're seeing that increase. So that's TD. If you can bring up the rule.
I know what the rule is. I was just asking why you're asking.
Because we just there's demand, and we also, I just wanted to point out, we're amenable to dictating where these vehicles go, in that we would be open to deploying them outside of central downtown, which we've done in the past when this body has granted us the 50 scooter fleet increases in the past.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that we passed that rule over a year ago, I think, didn't we? And we have made at least the approval of at least one request for more scooters because under that rule.
And in fairness to Lime, this rule requires a 2.5 utilization rides per scooter per day to make the request, and this is the only company of the 3 operating in Nashville who do qualify to make the request.
If the motion carries, would Lime be able to substitute some of their existing scooters with these, and could they be in the downtown, or was?
Yes, ma'am. Oh, the fleet number wouldn't change, but they would be able to. They would have the ability to put some of the gliders in anywhere in the city that they wanted to.
Okay.
I mean, I'd love to see how the gliders do, and if they do well, I'd be open to increasing the fleet. But for now, I think a 50 scooter increase is not warranted.
Could I ask a question? What's the basis for your reaching that conclusion?
On NDOT staff recommendation.
But what's their basis for their reaching that conclusion, NDOT staff?
It's going to be the Hub Nashville complaints on the downtown Nashville area, the sidewalk clutter, the sidewalk riding.
And what is the number of those?
It's a high number.
Very large.
That's because there are people paid to be downtown who are making those complaints.
I would disagree.
All
right. I request then, Commissioner, for the next meeting that you go through the list of complaints that we receive in this month's package, and you point out the ones that were not legitimate. And I will be glad to
No.
encourage my fellow residents in the downtown area to be more frequent in their complaints.
That's not
'Cause
who's
I can
doing
tell-
it.
Well, I
That's
think-
not who's making the complaint.
Well, so I'm sorry, am I understanding you that you're encouraging citizens to enter more complaints in the hub system?
Sure,
Thank you.
absolutely. I tell people to but it's not citizens that's doing it.
Understand that we get a lot of those, and we have to, TD and I are the only two that can actually take care of them. So we want legitimate complaints to come into Hub, so that and most of the time we get a picture, and most of the time it is a violation. So I will say that.
And it comes from one organization that should have something better to do, but I won't. I won't
right.
talk about
Like to
that.
call the
So, but the
question.
point is,
We'll have a throwdown after the next meeting.
no, well, the companies are dealing with, okay.
All right, do we have any
I-
further discussion on the particular motion?
I wanted to just mention that we are unlikely to bring gliders without increasing our, like because they'll be diverted to other markets where the programs are more amenable to, evolving fleet growth. So it's unlikely that we'll be able to bring them in Nashville without a fleet increase at this time, unfortunately.
Well, that's a shame, because I was gonna be very interested to see whether you got above that threshold of 2.5 rides, but I guess we won't get to see that.
I mean,
got above it because
it'll
of
be an
gliders.
operations decision, not a me decision, but that's what I've been.
Again, I'm open to it, and I'd love to see the numbers on it, so I encourage you to bring some into Nashville.
All right, there's been a motion, a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? One opposed, okay. The motion does carry, though. All right, other business. Director Worker.
Yes, sir. Real quickly, Aaron Cushman of NDOT, he's our IT director at NDOT. He's going to do a very brief explanation as to what we are doing at the TLC about going online. Our online application process is going to be changing. We're not going to be manual. We're going to be online. So he's going to do a short presentation to kind of inform you as to where we're headed and what that looks like.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner. I'm Aaron Cushman. I'm the IT manager, as well as the information or intelligent traffic systems manager. And I have the transportation engineering group, which includes the traffic management center, as well as the whole TSMO program under me right now.
What's TSMO?
TSMO is Traffic System Management Operations. So it's all of your intelligent traffic systems. It's all wrapped up into one. So all your radars, all your cameras, all that stuff is wrapped up in there, and that's what helps our TMC operate. What we decided to do, especially when I came on board, I've only been here 2 years. One of the big things that we wanted to do was take TLC from a manual process and bring them into the 21st century where everything is a digital process. The people are bringing in paperwork with social security numbers, driver's license photos, everything. They're walking down the street, standing in line, turning in applications. All that's gone with this new system. Everything will be done online. Everything will be encrypted. Everything will be protected. Nobody will see social security numbers. Nobody will see driver's license numbers, addresses. All that will be encrypted. The only people that will be able to see it is the original applicant as they put it in. Once they put it in, the only thing they'll see is their last four. So this whole system is we're going to start with the taxi industry. We're going to be doing the taxi cab drivers. We're going to be doing the taxi companies, and all of that will be online. We're going to have trainings for the taxi companies. We're going to have kiosks set up inside the TLC office so that taxi drivers can come in and get help walking through. Another really cool thing about the system is it uses Google Chrome and Edge. So all of your translation features are already built into those systems. So if they read and write in anything other than English, they'll be able to translate that page, and it'll be easier for them to read what's going on and be able to upload those documents. Everything from their background checks will be stored in there, driver's license, social, everything will be stored and encrypted within this system. And it'll allow us to communicate directly to that individual via text messages or secure messages to them saying, hey, you need to add this, you need to add this, you need to add this. And then we can
Are
process.
you talking about their criminal background?
That will be part in there.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, say they have to get the application notarized. If they just upload it without the notarization, we can reply to them, hey, we got it, but you need to notarize it. So then they can notarize it, re-upload it, that kind of thing. So it's going to be a very nice system. We're going to start with taxis, and then hopefully we're thinking end of 1st of October, we'll be doing the rest of all of the licenses that we do. So this will be nice for you guys as well, because we will have a staging area that you guys will have access to. So if there is a new company that's coming on board for taxis that's applying, you will be able to see everything. You'll have your own separate login, and you won't be delivered a stack of paper to go through. Everything will be online for you as well.
Well, thank you.
You bet.
Does anybody have any questions? Or?
Always thrilled to have better technology. I know you'll be sad not to do this stuff by hand.
Yeah, the staff is very upset that we not get
Yes.
to lug all this stuff around and everything. There was a lot of pushback. No, we're very excited.
And if you guys would like, to walk through the system, we do have a staging system. I can send you the URL. You can get in and create your own taxi company right now. If you wanted to get in and see exactly what it's like, I can set you up with that.
Thank you.
You can create your own scooter company. Though we're not on that one yet, but we're getting there. So
Thank you for your help.
you bet.
This is going to be a wonderful new system. It's going to help us help you to be more efficient and more effective in what we're doing.
Awesome.
Thanks for being here all day.
Oh, yeah. I was doing conference calls outside.
Yeah. All right, I think this is when we close the meeting, correct?
Yes, sir. We need
All
to
right.
close the meeting.
All right, notice, the broadcast section of this meeting has concluded. The remaining portion of the meeting will not be broadcast because the commission will be considering confidential and protected criminal history background information of driver applicants. Questions should be directed to the Transportation Licensing Commission office at 615-862-6777.